Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source podcast with Comic Boom, collaborating on your DC books for the week of October 12th, 2021. Big DC week, a lot of books. Overall, pretty solid week. It's kind of hard to judge when they put out this many books because some are not so great, others are really great. But there's just so much volume of stuff. It feels overwhelming at times. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
agree.
I feel like it was a pretty good week, right, Rocky?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Like I said, part of the problem, I think, and I think you sort of alluded to it, is that when we review this many and we read so many all at once, that sometimes, it's kind of hard to, flush out maybe they're good. Like I never really came across, I mean, there's a couple of stinkers here maybe that I wasn't a big fan of, but for the most part, it felt good. It's funny. It's sort of like reading the room or the temperature in a room when you're done reading. Like we've read like 16 comics, and it's like, wow, now we got to review them. But I feel better than I feel more better than I normally do sometimes when I read that many. So it can't be that bad a week.
Yeah, I mean, I think more positive than negative. So,
Yeah.
so let's dive right in. The first one is Batman '89 from writer Sam Hamm. Joe Quinones handles the art. Leonardo Ito on colors. Clayton Cowell on letters. There's a Mitch Garrett variant cover. Last time we left off with issue 2. Harvey Dent had raced into this garage in the Burnside area of Gotham and was trying to rescue Duke. In our universe would be Signal, or Drake rather, right?
Yeah.
Call him Drake there.
They
Drake.
call him Tim Drake.
Duke.
Yeah. Or I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Tim Drake, not Duke Thomas. I was thinking Duke Thomas, but no, Tim Drake. But he's black, like Duke Thomas is. Obviously, with the jacket he wears, it's clear they're setting him up to be Robin. But Harvey Dent was in there. The staircase he was on collapsed in the fire, and he fell down on the garage floor. There were some car batteries leaking acid. Obviously, it was going to burn his face. Now, they mention in this issue that it's sulfuric acid, and that Bruce Wayne himself says, well, it's not just that it burned him, but he breathed in like the fumes of it, and I guess that could damage the lungs. But it's definitely a different origin, if you will, for Two-Face, because in our universe, he got acid thrown on him that was smuggled into a courtroom where one of the mob bosses of Gotham was on trial, and one of his cronies, or I think it was his wife or girlfriend or something, smuggled it in and handed it to him, and he smashed it on Harvey Dent's face. I kind of like this origin better in that it does make sense why it's only half, right? He was laying on the ground, and the battery acid only got half. But it's interesting when it started off, you didn't think that's what was going on at all, because there's Harvey. It's like jumps 1 year later, Harvey Dent's governor. There's all this stuff going on, and then you realize, no. Mm-hmm. He was sort of dreaming while he was unconscious, and sure enough, half his face is burned off. It's the Two-Face that we all sort of know. And again, like I said during the second issue, this certainly feels more like a Two-Face comic than a Harvey Dent, Billy D. Williams Two-Face comic than it does a Batman comic. But in the second half of the issue, we do get a little bit of interaction between the Michael Keaton Batman and the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman, and then it switches back over to Harvey in the end. So, Batman '89 is not my favorite version of Batman, but this definitely does a great job of capturing the feel of the movies, which makes sense because the screenwriter of those films is the same one who's writing this comic. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you are a fan of the Batman '89 movies, I think you are absolutely going to love this. I do like the version of Barbara Gordon that's been introduced, and it definitely feels like a story that is set in that universe. So being that I'm not the biggest fan of that universe, for me, this is just okay. But solid if you like that sort of version of Batman, because the art is very reminiscent of that world and so is the dialogue and just the overall tone and feel of the story. So, what do you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I do think that it is very Two-Face centric, and it's, maybe in future issues we got more of Michael Keaton in this issue, and I guess the Catwoman in this issue, which was nice. But the vast majority of this issue was, I think it did focus on Harvey Dent, and it's interesting the way that they built the dichotomy. There's sort of like obviously the Two-Face, the dichotomy, and the double-sided coin. Obviously, the way the mythology, the way they played with it here is, it's like there's two worlds that Harvey Dent lives in, and the trauma that he had when he got his face scarred in this issue with the sulfuric acid, he part of him is almost living in an alternate world where he's the hero, where Harvey Dent saves the day when he ran into the building, as opposed to Tim Drake and Bruce Wayne saving Harvey Dent in reality. And of course he's recovering, and so he's dealing with that trauma. Meanwhile, the irony of this story is that Bruce Wayne is revered as the hero, and Bruce Wayne is the one that sort of comes out and he's looking really good. And Bruce Wayne is not he's usually one to shy from the spotlight. So I like the story here. Bruce Wayne is revered Bruce Wayne is the superhero in a great twist of irony. Harvey Dent, you can see his slowly deteriorating mind. There's good rapport between Alfred and Bruce Wayne. You mentioned before Catwoman and Batman. Really good rapport there, because from the movie, I thought that I think everyone sort of assumed Catwoman died in the I think that was the second Batman, Michael Keaton Batman movie.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see her back. I would have thought that Batman would have been a little bit more surprised to see her, but it's interesting. But the style of Batman, the style of art, like we're talking about the Batman suit and their dialogue and their sexy repertoire back and forth, I thought it worked quite well. And yeah, fans of Batman '89, fans of Michael Keaton, I think we'll enjoy this. I'm hoping to get a little bit more Batman in future issues, more interaction between Michael Keaton and Catwoman. But overall, I thought this was pretty good too.
Yeah, it's a good point. And when I think back on those movies, they did give a lot of screen time to the Joker and to the Penguin, respectively. So it makes sense that this would feel very Two-Face centric if he's the villain. But at least we got some character moments, especially in the first one from Bruce Wayne, and we haven't gotten any until this issue. I feel like we finally started to get some Bruce Wayne moments, like the interaction between him and Alfred about Catwoman's cat. Was kind of funny. So. All right, well, let's move on. As always, it's a very Batman-centric week at DC, and I don't know that I heard about this next title we're going to talk about. It's Batman the Imposter #1. It's a Black Label book. For some reason, this happens from time to time. In the press preview copy they sent us, there's no credits page. So, we do have credits on the front cover, and then on the back, it does mention that Mattson Tomlin, who is a director and a screenwriter, is the writer of it, and Andrea Sorrentino does the artwork. And we know from the front cover that Jordi Belair is on letters, or on colors rather, but we don't know who's on letters. And I'm pretty sure that variant cover is Lee Bermejo. That's the one that I'm going to pick up. I didn't even order this. I don't even remember seeing it solicited. Yeah. But man, I thought it was fantastic. It's a different, again, it's Black Label, so it's out of continuity, and it's a little bit different. I don't know if I want to say a more realistic look at Bruce Wayne. Leslie Tompkins, who in this reality is a Black woman, she's still a doctor, but rather than being just a physician, he's also a psychiatrist. So for those that aren't familiar, you can be a psychologist, which means you study all the stuff about the mind and mental illness and all that, but you're not technically a medical doctor. If you're a psychiatrist, you're an MD. So you're a medical doctor, you go to medical school, and then after that you go to psychiatry school, psychology school, and you learn about mental illness and that sort of thing. So this Leslie Tompkins apparently is a psychiatrist in addition to being a medical doctor. And she knows, just like all versions of Leslie Tompkins, at least all ones I've read, she does know that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but she's worried for him. She's basically gives him an ultimatum, like, you need to come and talk to me every day, because because she feels that Bruce is harming himself by being Batman. Um, so again, it goes back to, and I think it's a very true portrayal of who Leslie Tompkins is, from the first time she was presented with Bruce Wayne as a young boy who was traumatized. And she talks about the laundry list of diagnoses she gave him: acute anxiety, obsessive compulsive, possibly on the spectrum, which is interesting, the autism spectrum, uh, which, kind of makes sense. You hear about, when you take it to the extreme, like idiot savant. Um, and obsessive, clearly he's obsessive. So could that be obsessive compulsive disorder? Obviously PTSD, because he just saw his parents murdered. But from that very moment, she felt that connection with Bruce and has always wanted to protect him. Um, and that extends even to now, even that she knows he's Batman. He shows up at her house one night next to death, and she nurses him back to health, and says that, she's worried for him. Again, it's that instinct she's always felt for him, wanting to protect him. She wants him to stop being Batman, and he says, no, I'm making a difference. And so her condition for not turning him in is that he needs to come there every day, every morning when he finishes his patrol as Batman, and they're going to talk, and she's going to try to help him. But again, this is a different reality. In this reality, Commissioner Gordon is out, and all the cops that kind of got along with Batman are out, and what's left is sort of, in our universe, what was there at the beginning, a police force that's very suspicious of Batman. And then the whole imposter comes in, where somebody's trying to actually set Bruce Wayne up, because this is supposed to be when he's only been Batman for a year or so, very short period of time. So somebody dressed as Batman has killed some people, has thrown some criminals off a roof. Now Bruce Wayne's being framed for it. And I'm glossing over a lot of the details here, but the way the story is built is fantastic. There's not actually a lot of Batman or a lot of Bruce Wayne in this story. We get a lot of the surrounding characters. We get a lot of Leslie Tompkins in the beginning, and then the last few pages, we get a lot of a detective Wong, who becomes part of another larger task force that's supposed to be stopping Batman, Blair Wong, and so they take supposedly the best of the Gotham City Police Department. They're putting together this crew, and they're trying to stop Batman, seemingly almost by any means necessary, and especially once they learn that this who they think is the actual Batman has killed these criminals by pushing them off a roof. That only kind of lights a fire, right, for them to try to stop Batman. And all of a sudden, all their suspicions have been justified. But also in the background of all this, and what Blair Wong has suspected all along in her investigations of Batman and what she's found, she knows it's somebody who's either wealthy or has access to a lot of wealth. And then with some of the people that she's been contacted from, who are complaining about the things that Batman is doing, they're sort of one percenters, right? They're the backbone of Gotham. And what's interesting is they choose to create these one percenters. Tomlin, the writer, chooses to create these one percenters as names you'll recognize, as classic Batman villains, but instead of being like out and out super villains, they're just one percenters that have like a ton of money, right? Like the first place she goes is to see a Mr. Wesker, who supposedly has done all these great things for Gotham, but anybody will recognize Wesker as the last name of the ventriloquist, right? And then they talk about Cobblepot, the Sionis family. Cobblepot obviously being the Penguin, Sionis being Black Mask, Roman Sionis. So it's interesting. She's starting to put this together. Like, could these one percenters actually be the ones that are funding Batman? Because when he blows up one of their buildings or one of their warehouses or is damaged, whatever, then they can claim the insurance. So is it fraud? And she's investigating. And at the end of the issue, she actually goes to talk to Bruce Wayne because one of his buildings got blown up, and that's kind of the cliffhanger that it ends on. So there's multiple layers to the story, and even though there's not necessarily a ton of action. There's one scene where Batman, he basically recounts to Leslie Tompkins how he got injured when he showed up at her house that first night when the story opens. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of action. It's a lot of political intrigue. It's a lot of kind of back and forth talking heads. But there's definite tension that is set up. And I think Tomlin does an excellent job of establishing the tone and the mood of the world. And so it's very compelling. Like, I kept reading and being like, just thinking to myself as I was reading, this is so good. This is so good. And also, as I kept scrolling through, I'm like, oh, wait, it's still going. It's still going. It's a huge chunk of story. It's almost double size. It's 48 pages. So usual comic is 2022. You get more than double that. So I was pulled in right away. And then on top of the narrative, the visuals that Andrea Sorrentino does, this could be, and keep in mind that this is the guy that did Gideon Falls, which I thought was a masterpiece visually, both in colors and in line work. This is better. This is the best thing I've ever seen him do. When he does little like black and white insets, so you can like see X-rays of people's bones when Batman's breaking them or whatever, fantastic. There's great montage pieces where he's using black and white as kind of the background, and then in the foreground, there's the outline of these bats flying across the page, and in each, it's just the outline of the bat, and in each one, you can see little visuals, and he does that throughout. Like, who thinks of creating panels that are basically the outline of bats flying? I mean, fantastic. The use of the sound effects. I mean, he does the bat thing several times where the outline of the panels is the shape of a bat. I mean, this is just stunningly good visually. Like, it sets a tone that's a little cynical, that's a little run down in terms of the city of Gotham. This is not a nice place. This is not, it's a very street level story. It's grimy, it's gritty. So almost, Batman crime noirish. The only thing that I didn't like, I'll say visually, the only time where I saw a panel and I was kind of taken aback or just thought, there is one scene where Bruce takes off his mask, and again, this is very young Bruce Wayne just starting off, and his face sort of reminds me of what Robert Pattinson looks like when we saw him in the Batman trailer. So, I don't know if this originally was planning on coming out around the same time as that movie or whatever. Yeah, that's the panel if you're watching on YouTube. And anything that reminds me of that dumpster fire that we've heard is not a positive in my mind. And believe me, I hope I'm wrong and that movie turns out to be fantastic. But from everything I know, that's not going to be the case. But anyway, this was great. And like I said, I really got to get my hands on that Lee Bermejo variant cover. As much as I don't usually buy physical comics, especially not Batman comics these days, this is worthy of putting on my shelf for sure. Absolutely fantastic. What did you think, Rocky? Did you enjoy it as much as I did?
I did. I think it's particularly good for someone who maybe hasn't read Batman in a long time. This is its own mythology. It takes place in year one. Captain Gordon has been sort of as Captain Gordon, it's hinted at, worked with the Gotham PD, worked with Batman, and so he's sort of on the outs a little bit. So he's still in its infancy. Batman's still in his first year. Batman gets injured, and he obviously ends up crashing in through the window of the office of Leslie Tompkins. She sews him up, but it comes with a price. Bruce has got to meet with her, every day to talk about his psychosis or whatever the hell he has. But his obsession is working because as he said, because of Batman, Bruce Wayne thinks that it's because of him that finally, for the first night in 54 years, Gotham City doesn't have any crime. there's a violent crime in Gotham City. So Batman is having an effect, and it's actually working, and it's only in his first year. And I really like, and you alluded to it, you talked about this detective Wong, who's actually investigating it, and connecting all the pieces, and very intelligently going about it. And I got to give credit to the writer here, Mattson Tomlin. He does a really good job at spelling out that mystery, and how Detective Wong is sort of exploring the idea of all the corporations, like the 1%. How do they feel about Batman? They control a lot of this. And it's very interesting. I never really made the connection until you mentioned it about about Wester. Wester Capital, that being the ventriloquist. Obviously, Cyanus' Black Mask. It's interesting that all the 1%ers in Gotham do end up becoming the arch nemesis and villains, members of Batman's rogues gallery. And the irony
or it's sort of like what John Byrne did with Lex Luthor back in the 80s, turn him into a businessman. Maybe what Tomlin is saying is the real villains are 1%. People who have so much money, they don't have to put on a mask or a costume or a wooden puppet on their hand. A ventriloquist dummy to be evil. They're super villains, or they're villains just all on their own as it stands.
That's right. And I actually thought it was kind of funny too. I got a couple chuckles. Detective Wong was putting together. Apparently, Batman has she found 20 different motorcycles that were high-class motorcycles, high-end, high-tech motorcycles valued at $65,000 each, that Batman has left scattered throughout the city. And she's finding all these zip lines that there are a lot of zip lines connecting a lot of the buildings in different parts of Gotham, and different, so she's piecing together that, through the zip lines and the strategically placed motorcycles and modes of transportation, that Batman, whoever this Batman is, he's well informed, and he's clearly got a lot of money, or he's connected to someone who has a lot of money. So she's definitely thinking, she's connecting the dots. And of course, she's probably going to be led astray, because there's a lot of 1%ers in Gotham, and at the end, where she ends up knocking on Bruce Wayne's door while Bruce Wayne is still trying to piece together who this imposter Batman is that killed these three, kicked these three bad guys off a roof, and the three people that were kicked, that this imposter Batman kicked off the roof, I think were pedophiles, or ne'er-do-wells, obviously scumbags. But of course, Batman doesn't kill, but of course, in the first year, nobody knows that Batman doesn't kill. And so this is kind of a big deal for Batman if he's going to get this type of reputation this early on. So in any event, I agree with the art about Andrea Sorrentino. I fell in love with that art style with when he did Green Arrow. The Green Arrows for DC is when I really got familiar with that art. But this was, I'll definitely be checking this out. So opening issue, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely recommend everybody checking it out. So, all right. Because it's a DC, of course, the next book is also Batman. This one, an anthology. It's the next issue of Batman Urban Legends. It's issue number 8. There's 4 stories. First one is a Batwoman story called The Disinformation Campaign. It's a 2-parter. This is part 1. It's written by Alyssa Wong. The art is by Vasco Gregev. Colors are by Rain Barreto, and letters are by Becca Carey. The second one is a 3-part Azrael story, Dark Night of the Soul. Part 1 is written by Dan Waters, Nicola Zamenja, or maybe it's Zemesia. I think it's Zemenja. I think it's Polish. He's the artist. Ivan Placencia does the colors. Ariana Mayer on letters. Then we've got a Professor Pig story called Little Pig with art and colors, and written by Christian Ward with Steve Wands on letters. And then there's a 2-part Outsider story called The Fearful. Part 1 is written by Brandon Thomas, Cian Torme on pencils, Raul Fernandez on inks, Alejandro Sanchez on colors, and Steve Wands on letters. So overall, pretty solid story. I really especially enjoyed the art. I'm not familiar with Vasco Gregev, but the Batwoman story that also has the Cassandra Cain version of Batgirl, I felt was beautifully drawn, great colors as well, by Rain Barreto. Almost a little bit of, I got a little Clayton Henry vibes here or there with the way he does anatomy and body language, as well as sort of the angles he takes. His bodies tend to be a little bit longer. there were a few little nitpicky things that I'm not sure why Alyssa chose to do. Like when Renee Montoya shows up at um, Kate Kane's apartment, why she's holding out her badge, like I'm Renee Montoya. Like they dated, right? Like it's even mentioned here. I don't think that Renee Montoya would be standing there, holding her badge up. I don't know. That just felt more for our benefit than for the benefit of Kate Kane. But anyway, somebody's setting up Batgirl. Yeah, I almost said Batwoman. Someone's setting up Batgirl, Cassandra Cain Batgirl. There's this viral video going around um, where Batgirl just shows up and kind of beats the crap out of some people who are completely innocent. And when Kate Kane goes and talks to Cassandra Cain, obviously no relation there, in case you're not familiar. Um, Cassandra Cain's like, no, I didn't do it. So what's going on and who might be behind it, we're not real sure. But this does tie into Fear State, so Magistrate probably has something to do with it because when you get to the end credits, it even says Fear State right above the credit. Fear State Disinformation Campaign. And Kate Kane's sister, who was Red Alice back in the day, and has been trying to get over that, apparently has kind of a relapse. And the Seer is mentioned as well, and that's whole part of the I Am Batman thing that we'll talk about in a little bit. So a lot of moving parts here, a lot of moving pieces. It feels kind of strange to me. This is only a 2-part story just because there's so much that goes on in this issue, and it definitely feels like it should lead into something else with Batwoman. And Batwoman is a character that I think a lot of people like Batwoman. And she's had her own series twice, and then she played a big role in James Tynion's run on Detective Comics, but she's kind of been absent since then. She showed up in Batman, here or there, but I don't know if this possibly could be leading into another Batwoman title or not. It's so interesting because, like I said, I think a lot of people like her, but she doesn't seem to be able to sustain a long run, and I'm not really sure why that is. So, and there's more detail I could get into the story, but honestly, it just, like I said, there's a lot going on, and it feels sort of messy. And I'm going to talk about that later when we talk about some of the other Batman books that we're going to talk about, because there's more Batman. Just in terms of how everything seems so messy to me right now in Gotham, even with Fear State going on and what Tynion's doing and whatnot. And this feels sort of very indicative of that. So it definitely feels like a Fear State story from that viewpoint, I guess you'd say. What did you think of this first story, Rocky?
It was okay. I really liked the art. I think the art's really good. I like
Yep.
the rendering of Cassandra Cain. Cassandra Cain. I think artistically they at least they make Cassandra Cain look more Oriental than Caucasian because that's how she's supposed to look. So, but there's a little bit more of a Oriental look to Cassandra Cain. I thought the story, frankly, I did think it was. I thought it was very. Uh, it's drowned in the magistrate storyline, but I actually think it's predictable in terms of what's going to happen, but at least it's done in a fun way, and it utilizes the character of Beth Kane very well, Kate Kane's sister, and it with Cassandra Cain too. I think it it does well. I think it's obvious the magistrate is just setting things up to make Cassandra Cain look like a villain so that they can justify them taking down the masks. In furtherance of the sort of like the magistrate's goal of of justifying their war on the masks and violating civil liberties and all part of the whole future state fiasco. And so this is sort of right in keeping with that. I do think that that Batwoman is a character that needs more. She needs, well, first of all, she needs a better TV show, but I would rather just have the one. It should be canceled because it was, what a terrible TV show, awful. But I don't think it was ever very good, and it's an embarrassment, and it's but the comic book has always been much better, but for some reason it hasn't been as well received. Although I do think part of the problem with the comic book is that it does need more men in it, more male characters instead of always focusing on female protagonists or everything else. It needs some stronger male supporting casts. And again, this is my criticism of some movies too. I think that too much of Batwoman is through a female lens, and it needs to be through. You just need some stronger male supporting characters. Batwoman is still the lead character. I'm just saying, I'm on a soapbox a little bit here, but I think that the title would benefit from that. And this story is a prime example of that. Just, once again, just women. Have thrown some male supporting characters in here that show a little gravitas in some way. And I think this is a larger problem with a lot of these female characters, and accounts for a lot of their, frankly, a lot of their failures in the storytelling, if I'm being brutally honest. And I love Batwoman, but no buts. I like this. I love Cassandra Cain. She's my favorite DC character. I love Cassandra Cain. I love that she's here, and I would love if I would rather have Batwoman and Cassandra Cain hang out, because I think Batwoman needs her own family. We got the Batman family. I'd like to see a Batwoman family where she gets her own sort of group of men and women that are supporting her and her sidekicks. I think that would be pretty cool to see. So I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree on the idea of the female point of view being why it doesn't work.
No, I meant the female lens.
The female lens. I think here's the problem. Like, because you're right, she would work on her own, like completely separate on her own. Like, she doesn't obviously need as big of a family as Batman has. Nobody, I would argue, needs a family that big. But the problem is that she came along so much later, and I know that there was a Kate Kane, in the golden age or whatever, but let's say that when Wonder Woman was created, instead of Wonder Woman, it was this version of Batwoman. I think she takes Wonder Woman's place and is just as big, if not bigger than Wonder Woman, because I think she works very well as a character. But I think the problem is the problem that a lot of newer characters have that don't gain traction, and that's the fewer readers, barrier to entry, hard to get. It's just really hard to get a foothold. Harley Quinn is sort of the exception lately that in the last 25, 30 years that has managed to do it and become huge. But I mean, look she had to be part of one of the most popular cartoons of all time, and it still took her another 25 years to finally break out and be who she has finally become. So interesting thing to think about, though. Yeah. All right, up next, and I don't have much to say about this because I think Professor Pig is a terrible character. I don't like him at all. So Little Pig is by Christian Ward, does all the art and writes it. As I said, Steve Wan's on lettering, and it's basically sort of a retelling of the Three Little Pigs from the perspective of Batman being the big bad wolf and Professor Pig's works of art being the little pigs, straw, stick, and stone houses. And the big bad wolf comes and blows them all down. So it's sort of narrated in a way by Thomas Wayne, who's reading the story of the Three Little Pigs to Bruce Wayne in his as a bedtime story. And it is fun when he gets to the end and talks about the wolf going down the chimney, and little young child Bruce Wayne says that the wolf was stupid. He should have been better prepared. I'll be better prepared. Because it's the whole joke about Batman. It's always prepared for any eventuality. So, I mean, the art is gorgeous because Christian Ward's a fantastic artist, and it's a relatively short story. But I can't stand Professor Pig. He's a Grant Morrison creation, right? That's probably why he's so kind of out there. I don't get. I don't understand Professor Pig. I don't get him. He's not scary. He's just dumb to me. Yeah. But that's just my personal. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this one, Ricky?
I really like the ending where, like you said, young Bruce Wayne says, "I'd have been better prepared," and shame on that. Shame on the pigs for not being better prepared in the story. But and then as soon as young Bruce Wayne says that, then of course it flashes to the present, and Batman. It's the Batmobile that goes down the metaphorical chimney, so to speak, to show that Batman is indeed prepared in his final confrontation with the pigs as he comes out of the Batmobile. And I enjoyed this. I have to say, when I started reading this story, my guess was that Tom King wrote it because I saw the art and I saw the pigs, and it reminded me of Tom King's Batman run. And Tom King is always doing metaphors with other works of fiction. And I thought, you know what? Tom King wrote this. I bet you he wrote this. And then I get to the page and where it says, no, it's Christian Ward. But I was surprised. I actually thought Tom King would have wrote something like this, because he's often like utilizing fairy tales and other stories to sort of be the backdrop of some of his short stories. So, but this was really good by Christian Ward. And Christian Ward is different than Tom King, because Christian Ward is a fantastic artist in addition to being a good writer in his own right. So it's pretty good. Very entertaining tale.
Yeah, fair enough. The next one is an Azrael story, and I haven't read all of Justice League Odyssey, even though I bought all hard copies and I want to read it. So Dan Waters, Nicholas Mezja, Ivan Placentia, Ariana Mayer, and sort of interesting. So Azrael's another one that he when he first debuted, he was so immensely popular that Denny O'Neil written, Joe Quesada drawn 4-issue miniseries that was going for gangbusters in the secondary market. And he became Batman, and then after he wasn't Batman anymore, he even had his own series that ran, I think, for over 100 issues, or close to. I mean, that's like a 10-year run. And then he just sort of disappeared. He fell out of favor. I mean, maybe part of why he was so popular, he was just a product of the 90s. You know, the big gloves and the just complicated costume and intricate costume, and sort of that Punisher-like anti-hero, avenging angel, and it's sort of that fad came and went, and Azrael sort of came and went with it. So it surprises me. I have a lot of that run, but I haven't read all of it. And obviously DC, the whole DC universe has undergone several reboots or relaunches or resets or whatever you want to call it since then that could have changed John Paul Valley's sort of personality or origin or whatever. But I think he's been pretty consistent on who he was all along. You know, a boy who was brainwashed by the Order of Saint Dumas with the system, and then activated, and he was out to get revenge and really be that avenging angel, and about to, to punish sinners and whatnot. So he's always had that sort of religious connection. And here he's back, and he's. It seems like Dan Waters is trying to maybe reset or reestablish him back in Gotham. He's still a little out there. He's still a little off in terms of his personality, and maybe there's I don't know, some underlying mental illness, or maybe it's just damage from the brainwashing that he undertook. Because it's interesting. So basically he's out there, and he's back in Gotham, and he's just trying to do his best to go to clean up the streets, to just do what he did when he was a member of the Bat family. And when some people show up dead, Batman goes and confronts him and says, "Hey, this isn't you, right? Because you've stepped over the line in the past." And John Paul says, you know about the trauma, you know about my past, you know about me being brainwashed by the system, but I did take the time to actually read the Bible, and I'm on the side of angels now, no pun intended. So supposedly he's in a good spot, and he isn't crazy, and he just wants to be a hero. But then when people who are dead in Gotham start to come back from the dead, he sort of falls back on maybe some of those ideas that he learned in the system, maybe about the afterlife and rebirth and resurrection and all that. Like, all that's tied in with religion and who Azrael is as a character. I'm not really that interested. I like Azrael as a character, but I'm not that interested in exploring the religious aspect of him. I would, and maybe it's kind of hard because it is so tied into his origin with the Order of Saint Dumas and what have you. But I would rather just read about who he is, struggling to leave that behind and just be like a regular, I don't want to say a normal person, but like a regular superhero. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. It seems like it might be interesting, but if it leans too far into the religious stuff, it might lose me, because I just don't really have much interest in reading a story about that. But what I did also notice that I thought was interesting was there's an editor's note right at the end of the story that says this story takes place before the events of Arkham City #1. So I'm like, wait, why did we need to know that? Arkham City #1 came out last week, super creepy. So I'm not sure what. Maybe this ties into that. People coming back. I'm not sure, but I thought this was okay. Uh, I liked it mostly because it's Azrael, and I feel like we don't see him that much these days. Um, but not really the Azrael story that I would want to read. Anyway, what
Yeah.
were your thoughts, Rocky?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how this would be connected to Arkham City #1. Was Azrael? He wasn't even in Arkham City #1.
No, not at all.
So I don't really understand why that editor's note is there. That's kind of I think that's a mistake. But in any event, I I having I love Justice League Odyssey for the most part. It floundered at the beginning, but it ended. I thought it really became quite an exciting read near the end. I really enjoyed how it involved Darkseid, and what of all the characters that were members of the Justice League Odyssey, Azrael was the oddest member of the entire group. And at one point, he was one of the acolytes of Darkseid, and he actually had an entire planet of worshippers that worshipped him. So it's interesting that he just makes a quick reference in this particular story that, Batman asks him where he was, and and he says, I was in space. And of course, it sounds ridiculous when you think of Azrael in space. And for those
You
who
know,
never read Justice League Odyssey, are probably shocked to hear Azrael was in space. Oh yeah, he was in space, and he actually played a kind of at different points. He was kind of a fairly significant role in different parts of the story. But in any event, uh, this is Azrael going back down to his roots, going back down to his faith, and I'm not a huge fan of Azrael myself. I was a bigger fan of him back when he was Batman, but I was glad when he was defeated, and I never collected his long. It might have been a 100 issue series. I didn't know. I didn't really care. I lost interest in the character. Although I do still have the old '90s action figure. I think somewhere in a box in my comic loft here, but. But in any event, this is okay. I mean, I'll check it out. I'm really curious. I'm I'm collecting Arkham City, and if he shows up in Arkham City, well, maybe that'll be good because I'm actually enjoying Arkham City. I can't imagine how Azrael's going to be part of that, but hey, I'll be looking forward to seeing what that's like.
yeah, the only thing I can think of why it ties into Arkham City maybe just has to do with villains from Arkham and A Day in subsequent issues of this story.
Right.
Uh, that's the only thing I can think. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last story, the next one and the last one is an outsider story. It's written by Brandon Thomas. The art is by Cian Torme, or the pencils, I should say, and then the inks are by Ralph Fernandez. Alejandro Sanchez does colors. Steve Wan's on letters. Gorgeous art, absolutely gorgeous art. I love the setup here. So the setup is the current version of the Outsiders. There's four members, and they leave that fifth member seat open to rotate. So you've got Metamorpho. These are and other than Duke Thomas, the Signal. These are classic Outsider members, right? You have Metamorpho, Black Lightning, and Katana, and then because I guess editorial at DC doesn't know what to do with Duke Thomas, the Signal, they throw him in there as well. And then instead of doing Geostorm or Halo or Looker, it's a rotating seat. Whoever needs their help. So we see a mission here with Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. We see Red Robin show up at the end. I every time I turn around, Tim Drake has a new nickname. Remember when
Yes.
Brian Michael tried to say they're going to call him Drake, like the
Yeah.
name of a male goose? I think it is that are apparently very aggressive. It's like that's just terrible. But yeah, is he Red Robin? Is he just Robin? Is he Drake? Like, oh my God, decide already. But he's my favorite Robin, so I don't mind him showing up here. Um, so that's kind of the conceit of what the current outsiders are up to. But the story actually starts way, 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 way in the future state plus 30 years. And again, we did get that future state outsider story where we know that Black Lightning was didn't have a body anymore. He was basically contained in the Soul Taker sword of Katana, but he could like manifest himself as this electrical being. And things are very, 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 very bad in the future. Duke Thomas has lost an arm, and his arm has been replaced by the arm of some sort of demon. And it's a really cool visual. He's riding on this what looks like sort of a giant panther, and being chased by this mob of creatures we don't know exactly what they are. And when they get to where they're going, which is this portal through time, the panther stands up, almost sort of transforms to a more humanoid form, and we find out that its name is Tikal, and it can talk, and it's a member of that future Outsiders. And we don't know exactly what happened at this point in the story, but basically something terrible happened that led to this point, and basically they're fighting against this being called the Fearful, and all these minions or followers of the Fearful who were chasing Duke at the beginning of the story. And so they get to this portal. Duke casts a spell and then throws the sword that contains Black Lightning back through time, and they're trying to change the past so this future never happens. And as he throws the sword and it travels back through time, we get little glimpses of the past, future state plus 24 years, plus 18 years, plus 6 years, plus 2 years. And then we see Black Lightning, the sort of electrical being Black Lightning, land in Gotham in present day. But this is sort of during Fear State, and he actually needed to go back before Fear State, because we learn in the course of the story that the Fearful was somebody who basically got his start not even as a bad guy, but he was exposed to the newer, updated fear toxin that Jonathan Crane had created that's part of the whole Fear State storyline. And it interacted with his body in a way that his pheromones are basically a fear toxin. And it leads to this horrific future. And so the new guy who's going to be the fifth member of the Outsiders is the future electrical entity Black Lightning, who's trapped in this Soul Taker sword. And if that sounds like a little convoluted and crazy, but also kind of cool and wild and out there, that's exactly what it sounds like. So I'm not surprised that this is Brandon Thomas writing this. You know, Rocky and I had him on the show not that long ago to talk to him, and he's got some great ideas, talented writer. And I absolutely love this. Like, we know Brandon Thomas did the Future State Outsider stories, and they were okay. He did I think it was a 3-part in the first 3 issues of Batman Urban Legends, a 3-part Outsider story that I didn't like as much. It sort of felt like it didn't really have a point to it, other than for us to be introduced to the idea that maybe Black Lightning and Katana have some romantic feelings for each other, even though Katana denies it. But that felt like that was sort of the only point of that story. But this I love. Like, I thought this was fantastic, and I would read I love the concept of a rotating fifth member. Like, I would definitely read an Outsiders book that had a rotating fifth member, because that allows you to bring in a guest star and you can go all kinds of different places in the DC universe. So I thought it was a fantastic idea, and this story specifically, and the fact that it sort of ties into Fear State, I thought was great. And the art was fantastic, the color work, everything. Like, this is my favorite Outsider story that I've read probably since, the Batman and the Outsiders run way back in the day, or the Outsiders that after Batman left, issue 32. So yeah, best Outsider story I've read since the 80s, I thought. So I don't know. What did you think, Rocky?
I would agree that this is actually a good story. This was I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more clarity or some hint that this was where this story was going to end up going earlier on, like, frankly, months ago during Future State. Now, we kind of got some hints of things, but quite frankly, the Outsider stories in Future State I thought they were very messy. They could have been better. I like the idea of Jefferson Pierce becoming a lightning embodiment within the Soul Taker sword that Duke carries around. That's cool. The revelation here in this story is that, of course, it takes place in the future, and the whole idea that what's going to contribute to Future State is this new sort of like almost like fear virus that's going to be made more powerful by the pheromones of this one person, Jonah Winfield, who gets infected by the fear toxin. But the reason why it has a different effect on him is that he was already infected by a different strain of the fear toxin when he was younger, and his own body chemistry sort of perverted it. And so he becomes like a walking, almost like viral fear toxin of and what the fear toxin that this this Jonah Winfield who becomes the fearless, I guess, this being called the fearful. It's so powerful that you can't defeat it. It's just, it overwhelms everybody, and so you can kind of see where things are headed at if you uh for you and I, when we're reading all the DC titles, pretty much there's something happening in all the major titles, from Teen Titans, the Suicide Squad, to oh god, all of them, Batman, Detective, and now with Outsiders, and I was going to say Justice League Dark, and even hinting at in Justice League, where there's something that's happening, and with Justice League, it's Black Adam, because he was sent back to prevent the future state from happening, and now we've got Jefferson. We got the Soul Sword sort of thrown back by Jefferson Pierce to prevent what's happening in future state. So we got multiple attempts in different comics to stop what is going to happen in future state. So if there's one criticism here, and maybe an underhanded compliment, is that while all these stories are interesting for readers like you and I who are reading all of it, it's kind of cool, it might be a little bit confusing for some, although if you're just reading these stories individually, they're not that difficult to catch on to. I mean, and it is kind of cool. I'm enjoying this Outsiders. This is a cool story. But having said that, these stories are scattershot all over the DC universe right now in various comic books, and there's really no central narrative. And Future State, at least when Future State came out, it was focused. We all the titles were kind of related, but here, I mean, we got a scattershot story here. Like, how is Future State going to resolve? If a reader was really interested in Future State, I mean, well, do they know to look at for this story in Gotham, in Batman Urban Legends number 8? Do they know to go and read a couple issues of Titans Academy? Do they know to read some issues of Justice League Dark as a backup in Justice League? I mean, there's some, I guess editorially, I wish DC would have handled this better, because this is a good story. This is a good good outsider story, and I just fear that it's not going to get the attention that it probably deserves, because Brandon Thomas has done a pretty good job with this.
Yeah, I agree. Things are like, yeah, you have to be like us. You have to be on top of it, and we're reading everything, or trying to.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just can't expect people to do that. So, all right. So overall, I think it's a worthwhile week, or a worthwhile issue of Batman Urban Legends, between the Batwoman story, and this Outsiders story, which this Fearful, who knows, he could turn into a major villain. I like the idea of him, and the power set. The Azrael story, and obviously the Professor Pig I could do without, but the first and last story were really good, and it kind of reminded me of the first few issues of Urban Legends, where we had that really good first and last story, the Red Hood story, Cheer Drops, and the Grifter story. So,
Yeah.
All right, up next we have Blue and Gold number 3. This one was delayed a month, and we didn't talk about that at the top. Maybe I'll take a second and talk about it here. There's going to be a lot of DC books that are going to be delayed, and a lot of these books that are coming out today should have came out sooner, and there's a lot of future books being pushed back. It all has to do with the paper shortage and how long things are taking to ship. And we already talked about Wonder Girl and how terrible the second issue was. The third issue is being pushed back to like November. And, we talked about it last week we felt like DC didn't take advantage of the absence while Diana Prince, the normal Wonder Woman, was not on Earth and supposedly dead. They didn't take advantage during Wonder Woman's 80th anniversary to fill that gap. Wonder Girl felt like it was supposed to, but it's been inconsistent, and then it's been late. Any momentum it could have had coming out of Future State has completely evaporated, and now it's going to take something like 6 months for 3 issues to come out. Nobody cares at that point, especially if it hasn't been very good and the second issue wasn't. So hopefully a lot of these other books that are being pushed back, you're not going to see the same lack of momentum, because, again, Blue and Gold has been pushed back. It's not DC's fault. I will give them a pass to some extent. For Wonder Girl, I think it's more than just, it was already late, because Joelle Jones is writing and drawing it, and she's not the quickest artist. But I just hope this doesn't impact DC's bottom line too much, because I just hate to see some of these series end prematurely. And I say that because I feel like, oh, I must have them, I deserve them. I want the creators to be able to tell the story they want to tell and have people receive it, and not have stuff forgotten because it's such a big delay. And they've canceled a bunch of collections and hardcovers too, because again, paper is just getting harder and harder to get. So anyway, all that to say that this should have come out last month. It's out now. Written by Dan Jurgens. Unfortunately, Ryan Sook is not the interior artist on this one. Cully Hamner's handling interior art. Chris Sotomayor on colors. Rob Lee on letters. Sook does do the cover. There's only one cover instead of variants, which is kind of interesting. Usually DC always gives you at least two covers. As far as the art goes, Cully Hamner's an exceptional character designer. I love the way he comes up with new looks for characters. And I think he's a great visual storyteller. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of his actual rendering. He tends to use thicker lines, and I'm not a fan of that. But the art is still very, very good. I think the colors really help out to kind of give Cully's art a little bit more of a dynamic feel, because again, in my mind, when you use thicker line weights, when I'm reading a comic, it tends to make things feel a little more static, like they're not fluid and they're not moving. But Chris Sotomayor does a great job on the colors that kind of mitigates that. So I thought this was some of the best art I've seen from Cully that I've personally enjoyed. And it didn't pull me out of the story at all. There's a lot of action here with Booster and Blue Beetle fighting this Omnizon girl that we saw last issue, who's part of some other planet that thinks that Earth is in their domain, and they're actually the rightful rulers of Earth. So yeah, it was fun. You know, Dan Jurgens has been writing this all along, and he certainly gets who Booster and Blue Beetle are. I mean, he created Booster Gold, so the fun is there, the humor is there, and the shenanigans are there. So yeah, I enjoyed this overall. I thought it was pretty solid. What did you think, Rocky?
Oh, it's pretty good. Dan Jurgens continues with the humor. He continues with he knows these characters so well. Per Blue Beetle here. I mean, he's lost his fortune, or he's been cut off from his money because his corporation sort of removed him as CEO because of the fiasco he got in, thanks to Booster Gold with the Justice League in the first two issues. And of course, that pisses off Princess Omnizon, who's going to come because this Earth is part of their jurisdiction. Meanwhile, Booster Gold, he's talking cocky to the landlords because he's expecting to get a brand new place, paid for, of course, by the Blue Beetle, his buddy. But that doesn't work out too well. Speculator alert! We got an introduction of I guess Buggles. That's what his new flying machine is. So that's good. So yeah, we got just more shenanigans here. There's a lot of great interaction with social media that Booster Gold has, and Dan Jurgens, to his credit, he looks at social media more on the lighthearted side, and he has fun with it. You could probably go pretty dark because there are darker aspects of social media and what have you, but Dan Jurgens has fun with it, and it's a fun read. It's not like he doesn't get too dark here. He keeps things lighthearted, and he makes a parody of some things, and he takes maybe pot shots at and creates a parody out of the real world, and it works. I enjoyed this. The Omnizon, she ends up ultimately getting transported away by Buggles, who transports her away into a swamp. And there's a pretty cool Jeep, I guess. Blue Beetle shows up in a pretty cool looking Jeep. So I don't know if his Jeep has a name, but in any event, I really enjoyed the use of the sound effects in the background, the pop, the peat, and the social media, the plop ups with the text messages from the people in social media watching. It's a good way to get people it's almost like breaking the fourth wall. Like it could be us saying those things about the scene, but instead it's other, it's other people commenting about what's happening because they're actually seeing it because Booster Gold wants it. He wants to be promoted. He wants people to see him in action. Except, of course, when he gets humiliated, then he wants Skeets to shut off the social media. But in any event, it's fun. I'm enjoying this. I don't know if you're a fan of Booster Gold or Blue Beetle. I don't know how you cannot pick this up because I don't know. I find this quite enjoyable, and if it's to me, it's a must read if you're fans of the characters.
Yeah, I think they call that a Blue Beetle calls that Jeep the Buggy, which
The
makes
buggy,
sense. Yeah,
the
bug like a
buggy and
Buggles, you
Buggles,
got
and
Buggy, yeah, and obviously the bug. So everything is insect theme with him. So yeah, fantastic. And like I said, this is written by Dan Jurgens, who created Booster way back in the day. And at the end of the issue, Trixie shows back up, which is fantastic. That was sort of the first person that Booster Gold met when he came back in time. And this is back in the 80s when the series first debuted. So I love the fact that Dan is reaching back into his early days of writing Booster and bringing her back in. And it's classic. Classic.
right on.
All right. Up next, we're swinging back over to Batman with Future State Gotham #6. This is written by Joshua Williamson and Dennis Culver. Art is by Giannis Giannis, lettered by Troy Petrie. There's no colors. And once again, I have to wonder why, because the art is serviceable enough. And we did talk about it in Future State when Milo Giannis art we didn't feel was that great. Kind of reminded us of the cartoon Doug from Nickelodeon. But there's definitely something missing from the colors here. I mean, this is a perfect example of sort of the mood and tone and the additive nature of colors. Because while I was reading this, I was thinking, as much as I don't care for Future State and both the event and sort of the timeline, there's the seeds of a good story here, and I think even the visual storytelling has grown on me, and maybe it's just that Milo Giannis is getting better just from doing it, from actually doing a monthly comic, and I think it does a little bit of a disservice not to give this the full treatment of make it look like a finished comic rather than making it look like the sort of sketchy half done thing. So the story, I've been reading it long enough, it started to interest me. I like the whole idea at the beginning of sort of Peacekeeper Red or Red Hood or Jason Todd or whatever name you want to call him, how he takes Jace Fox into the magistrate headquarters so they can sort of infiltrate from the inside out. I thought all that worked relatively well. There is a backup story. I'm just going to mention it real quickly. It's called A Father and Son Outing. It's written and drawn by Jorge Jimenez. So, most people know him as an artist, but he did get a chance not too long ago in a Batman Black and White to do a story. And they're representing it here, which they've been representing a lot of old Batman Black and White stories in this Gotham Future State, I guess, because Gotham Future State is black and white, to try to make it seem like they're not charging you for a fully colored comic on purpose. I don't know. My point is, we literally just read this story, and it's a great story from Jorge Jimenez, but we just read to the point that Rocky and I covered this. So this thing's only it's less than a year old, and you're reprinting it. I mean, come on, DC, take the backups out and drop this book by at least $1.50, because you don't have to pay a color artist. Or if you want to keep it at the same price, then color it and put some real backups in here, some not reprints. So anyway, because of there's no color and because these backups are reprints, I still, even though I'm more interested in this Future State Gotham storyline than I ever have been, and I'm curious to know how it all turns out, I still can't recommend anybody spend money on this comic, unfortunately. And again, it's not anything necessarily on the creative team. I think DC is just not doing them any favors with the way they're packaging this. So What did you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I was very annoyed when I saw that backup. I love Jorge Jimenez art, but we saw that backup story we saw already in Batman Black and White a couple months ago, and we reviewed it. And I mean, what a ripoff for fans to get that twice. I mean for people that it's unnecessarily filling up space. And what a like again. I mean, it's great art, but you're repeat. Why are you reprinting the same story we've already seen, like in a different comic? I mean, do they really think that's good business? I mean, it's so transparent. It is pathetic. It's like, do they have a contract with Jimenez that they gotta reprint it twice or something? I mean, it's just nonsense. But in any event, look, I agree that this story with it is actually getting better. The main story, written by Joshua Williamson, there, that the art here, it's a future state story that's finally starting to get some steam. The This whole issue is just basically, as you said, it's basically Red Hood taking Jace, the next Batman, the new Batman, into I guess magistrate headquarters, and where all the peacekeepers are. And ultimately they end up Red Hood is going to end up being confronted by Warmonger, who is in fact one of the first peacemaker who was experimented on and was frozen. And then he was one of the first, and now he's out and he's fanatical. And yeah, I'm not really sure where the time. It's kind of a cool story, it's kind of interesting, but as you said, it's not colored. And this is where this stuff's really starting to drag on now. It's like, when is this future state going to end? We've already reviewed a story in Batman Urban Legends where future state probably isn't going to happen because of the Outsiders, and it's probably not going to happen because of a slew of other titles. And this just seems a little bit yeah, I just can't recommend this. I can't recommend it. It's sad to say, but maybe at some point, if this was collected in a trade, it could be a little bit, maybe it would do it more justice, because I do think I'm being overly hard on it because it's in this terrible compilation and it's not colored. I think they should do with what like Robert Kirkman did with The Walking Dead. Color it up, have some fun. If you're gonna do this as a trade, color it up. Pay a colorist, for God's sakes. But in any event, this is a pass for me.
Yep, I agree. All right, up next we have Hardware Season 1, Episode 2. This is another one that got delayed a month. Written by Brendan Thomas. Pencils are by Dennis Cowan. Inks are by Bill Sienkiewicz. Colors by Chris Sotomayor. And letters by Rob Lee. So I had to go back and flip through Hardware number 1 because it'd been so long, just to remember what had happened. But this basically picks up where Hardware Season 1, Issue number 1 leaves off. But what did you think of this one, Rocky?
I enjoyed it. I continue to be impressed with the Milestone universe. You and I have both been enjoying it, whether it's Static, whether it's Hardware. Our favorite is, of course, Icon and Rocket, which is really good. This Hardware story, it picks up where it left off. Curtis Metcalf, who is Hardware, his former employer, Edwin Alvax, is working to frame him for what happened at the Big Bang, during the Big Bang parade, or during the Big Bang event, or what they're calling the Big Bang event, which is when a bunch of teenagers protested. There was a gas that was released, and Curtis Metcalf is being blamed for creating that gas, which in fact he did, but he never wanted to release it, but his boss Edwin Alvax did, and of course that caused a lot of these teenagers to generate certain superpowers, and one of those teenagers was, of course, the teenager that would become Static. And in any event, Curtis is being set up here. He's being set up here, and his boss is trying to do it in such a way as to really trying to do it and use his friends against him and the media against him. But Curtis is aware of this, and he infiltrates he infiltrates the corporation, and he befriends he meets up with one of his coworkers, and who looks up to him, this Tiffany Evans, and this Tiffany Evans actually bumps into him while he's sneaking around because he wants to find some information of one of the old partners of Al, Alvaz, Edwin Alva, sorry, and that's Asher Sim. So he wants to get some dirt on his employee in order to prove his innocence. And ultimately, you can tell this is a little bit behind because he ends up uh, being chased by police and hunted down, and then he wants to warn Static. Don't go. If you've been reading the pages of Static in issue 2, Static ends up getting confronted by police because Curtis tells him where to go to find one of his secret labs, but all his labs are compromised now, and it's clear that this his corporate boss really has it in for him and is really looking to set him up. And it's curious. I'm told by somebody who's read Hardware before that this is following the original story very closely. So unlike some of the other ones, I'm told, but I'm enjoying this. I think the art's really good. This doesn't feel like Iron Man. I thought this was going to be like Iron Man 2.0, but it's not. This actually feels very character driven. I like the character work between Curtis and Tiffany, and it works. And even Virgil Hawkins, who is Static, the way that this Milestone universe is connected, and it's its own thing. We know now that it's not connected to the DC universe. That was an open question for a while, but in the pages of Icon and Rocket, it was found that this is a universe that doesn't have a Superman. So if it doesn't have a Superman, I'm assuming it doesn't have a Justice League or anything else. So this is a uniquely Milestone universe. I prefer it that way. I like that. I can enjoy these stories more. I think that there's more flexibility and more potential to take the storylines off in directions that are more interesting and more thought-provoking, quite frankly. So Icon and Rocket is still my favorite. I will say that this still feels a little bit derivative. It still feels like, just a corporate bad guy, corporate frame-up. It doesn't really seem very original to me. I want it to pick up a little bit. So story-wise, I'm looking for a little bit more, and I'm hoping it picks up. This is probably in third place. It's probably not my favorite Milestone story, but it's still good, and at least it's consistent with the other Milestone titles. So, what do you think?
Yeah, hard to rate. I don't know if I could pick Static Shock or this as my second. I definitely like Icon and Rocket the best, but the other two are tied. I think they're both fantastic, and I think this is really good. Again, Brandon Thomas using the height of his powers, and yeah, it does hew pretty close to the original story that was told in the Hardware Milestone book from back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I do sort of wonder if Brandon Thomas has other things that he wants to get to. Like, let's establish that these are the same characters, and this is, a similar universe. The Dakotaverse, that's the name of the city that they live in, and there was a crossover at one point with the DC universe. But yeah, it is its own universe, like Rocky was saying. But the reason I say that is because probably the only thing that I didn't like about this issue is it does go at a breakneck pace. And I wonder, is that because Brandon Thomas has some plans that he's trying to get to? Like, let me establish that this is the same character, just modernized, but let me get those initial building blocks in place because I have some new stuff that I want to get to. Because a lot actually happens in this issue. We see a little bit of the aftermath of the helicopters that Hardware took out last issue, and then we see Curtis Metcalf trying to sneak into the Alva corporate headquarters building and meet up with an ally he has there. And then before we know it, Hardware is attacked and actually runs into a car and injures a little boy, and then has to take that little boy to the hospital, and then meets up with his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, and then he's off to go into hiding while he figures out how he's going to take Alva down, uh, in the long run, set some more long-term plans, since he's being hunted. So did that recap sound like a lot went on and it was choppy? Yeah, because a lot went on and it was a little choppy at times. We jumped from one scene to another, and I'm used to Brandon Thomas giving us character moments and giving us time for a story to breathe. Even the Brandon Thomas story we just talked about in the Batman Urban Legends had, a shorter story. Obviously, when I say shorter story, I mean a smaller amount of pages. But ultimately, The Outsiders is a shorter story as opposed to this Hardware. It is still season 1 because it is a limited series, and if it continues, obviously would be a season 2. But I don't know how long. I think they're supposed to be 6 or 8 issues, but certainly longer than that Outsider story. But clearly, he wants to get to something, because when you're doing a run like that, you're going to lay it all out and say, okay, I have this many issues, so these events need to happen in this issue, and these events need to happen in this issue, whatever. And then you keep narrowing down that timeline, and they say, okay, now I'm to the point where I'm at the issue. I have 20 pages. What needs to happen on each page? Oh no, I'm going to have to cut some stuff because there just isn't room. And I think that's a shame because from everything I've seen from Brandon Thomas, like we're just talking about the Outsider story, when we had him on and we talked about Future State Aquaman, the guy's an incredible storyteller. Look at his Image series Excellence, or his previous one from that, Horizon, that was also very, very good. I mean, these are really good stories, and the guy's a great storyteller, so why wouldn't I want him to be able to tell the story he wants to tell using the number of pages he needs to give me that story in the best possible way, give the story time to breathe, give us some character moments and all that kind of thing. So it just felt a little rushed to me. And it didn't feel like a technically poor comic. It didn't feel like they made any mistakes. It didn't feel like it was paced incorrectly, like it was too slow in the beginning or slow in parts and then sped up at other parts. What it felt like was, 40 pages of story or 30 pages of story that had to be condensed down to fit into a 20-page book. So I did enjoy it, and I think it's worthwhile. If you were a fan of Hardware back in the day, you will like this. Great art from, a comic artist legend, Dennis Cowan. So yeah, there's a lot to like here, but I hope that Brandon Thomas is getting the room that he needs to tell the story that he wants to tell. Okay, up next, I Am Batman, issue number 2. This is from writer John Ridley. The art is by Steven Segovia. Colors are by Rex Locus, and letters are by Troy Petrie. So this is obviously Jace Fox in the Batman costume, and I gotta be honest with you, Rocky. This was the issue, and I'd sort of been feeling it already because I was, and I mentioned it when we were talking about some previous books. I was already feeling it with Future State Gotham, and then with the supposed Future State tie-ins of Batwoman, and maybe Azrael ties in, maybe it doesn't, and then obviously the Outsider stories tying in with Jonathan Crane or whatever. But when I read this, that's when I really was like, I feel like the Batman corner of the DC universe right now is a mess when it comes to how does everything fit together continuity wise, and every story counts, and it doesn't have to exactly make sense, and this happened and this happened and this happened in this sequence, and read the books in this order, but it needs to not be so jumbled together that you don't have it. I feel like I don't have any idea what's going on. I thought that Jace Fox becoming Batman happened like in the future, and now it's happening here. Like it's not making sense to me. You know what I mean?
Know.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, and it doesn't. And I even think that in a way, it's still, we're still supposed to kind of think that it does take place a little bit in the future, but it is confusing. I don't pretend to understand exactly the timeline, but I agree with you 100%. DC's bragged about, the omniverse, everything matters, all these stories, isn't it really odd that they want us to sort of disregard continuity, kind of? They just want us to enjoy the stories because all the stories matters. It doesn't matter when the story takes place. Everything matters. But yet here they are, and they're cramming all the stories into the same continuity. They're cramming all these Batman stories under the same umbrella of Future State.
Yeah,
And
it doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't, and it goes against what I thought the whole point of an omniverse was, to try to help them get more organized so we don't have a continuity nightmare. And yet, again, I think I'm exaggerating a bit. I don't think it's that difficult to, I mean, if I Am Batman I agree with you. I Am Batman is kind of an outlier here. And they want to give this character more gravitas, and they want to give this character a good shake, but trying to, superimpose him into a storyline that doesn't need another Batman is just not something that works. I Am Batman here, it's a little bit like Future State Gotham, in that it's like, you really don't need to read I Am Batman or Future State Gotham to really get to enjoy the concept of Future State. This kind of throws a little bit of an odd little wrench into it that, it doesn't feel connected very well. I agree.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, so we saw Jace Fox in Future State, and it felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he was relatively new at being Batman.
Yeah.
And that was part of the problem. But now, and that was supposed to be 10 years in the future at least.
Exactly.
But now he's present day, and he's already already Batman. So why was he still struggling to figure out things when it was 10 years from now? Like,
I don't know.
The guy
I
had
don't
the
know.
slowest learning curve ever. It makes no goddamn sense. And again, I don't need it to, be able to read one after the other and it all tie in perfectly. But these are, in my mind, this is egregiously bad. It's just, everything is just slopped together. Maybe it happened 10 years from now. Maybe it happened yesterday. Maybe it happens tomorrow. Then we've got the outsiders. We're going 30 years into the future. Like, it just, I don't know. I think it's a problem.
To add to the problem is that it seems to repeat the same story beats, but changing the names of the villains. Instead of having the magistrate, we have the seer, and instead, it just seems, it seems to have the same sort of story and plot points, but with giving the bad guys different names. And instead of the magistrate, we got agents of the hidden agenda. And the one guy, Morris, he's an agent of the moral authority. And, this, instead of maybe the Peacekeeper 1 or Peacekeeper X, we have Seer, who's manipulating kids into thinking that they're special. And we got white privilege versus sort of like hard-on crime. So we got a little bit of politics thrown in there. And then we got a superhero, like a mass vigilante anarchy is sort of shot by kids. And so there's a war on masks. And so I guess that's the same as the magistrate, but, so it's related that way. But again, I don't hear anything about the seer over in the other Batman comics. And I feel like I feel like I need to completely read this I Am Batman completely isolated from the other Batman books. It would be better if I did. I would enjoy this comic book more because every time I read this I Am Batman, it's hard not to be confused because we've read so much Batman between Detective and Batman Urban Legends and all this stuff. And like I said, intuitively, if this worked intuitively, I've been reading comic books long enough, and so have you, that when the continuity is done right, intuitively things just feel right. It fits. But this absolutely does not. And frankly, I definitely side with your sentiment that this is egregious.
Yeah, it's so bad, and it pulls you out of the story. And I get it, right? Like, DC is sort of in a no-win situation with when they changed their plans. It's supposed to be James Tynion was supposed to write through issue 99, and then James Ridley was going to take over. Jace Fox was going to be Batman. Blah blah blah. And you tell the story, but when that fell through, so then what are your choices? Well, you can still write your story. We'll put it in another tale, but because it's Batman centric, and you let Tynion continue to tell this Fear State story, and we still have the magistrate possible future, like and Future State Gotham and what have you. It's still, that's a lot of pieces that you're expecting John Ridley to have to explain. And it's crowding out the story that he wants to tell, because clearly he had this idea of the seer and sort of similar to the magistrate and whatever. So it's almost like we should have just let John Ridley tell his as an alternate, different universe, different part of the omniverse. But then, what would have happened? You would have had people saying, well, how come John Ridley doesn't get to write a Batman in the main DC universe? You're sidelining him or whatever. Maybe he didn't want to, maybe didn't agree to that. I mean, who knows? Like, you can't win no matter what you do. But honestly, I feel like what they should have done was just ask Ridley, can you just keep working on it and we'll pay you? And then when Tynion is done, instead of having Josh Williamson come on Batman, we could have had this story. We already know Bruce Wayne is leaving.
Yep.
Right? He's leaving. He's going on some quest, and it's going to be Shadows of the Bat with somebody else taking over, or stories of Batman outside of Gotham, or whatever. We could have had this then. But I feel like it does a disservice editorially to John Ridley, because he's trying to shoehorn in the story he's telling. And I just feel like DC set this up for failure. I don't hear anybody talking about this. And, it's not like this is really, really good and blows me away, but it has potential. And I feel like if Ridley didn't have to juggle all the other crap, like Fear State and Magistrate and, all that other stuff, that this might be a better story. Would it be the story for me? I probably still wouldn't necessarily like it that much, because it does have, I talked about this before, that Empire feel, like from Fox, that show on Fox, which is kind of interesting, because this is a story of the Fox family, and it feels very soap operatic. And I don't care that much about the Fox family. I don't care about Lucius Fox or his wife or his kids or any of that. But that being said, there are moments here where I really like Jace Fox as Batman. I love when he takes off. There's a scene in this issue where he takes off the bottom part of his mask and shows somebody that he's a black man underneath, because the guy's like, I know you, you're Batman, you don't kill. And he's like, oh, really? You think you know? And do I look like the Batman? And he shows that he's got African-American roots. And then the guy gets really scared. In a way, that's sort of tropey, and I don't know if that is reinforcing the stereotype that, people are scared of black people, white people are scared of black people or whatever. But either way, it works, right? He's showing that he's not the Batman they knew. He's definitely not a kinder, gentler Batman. So there are moments like that where I think, this could be good. But again, I just feel like DC hasn't done John Ridley any favors. As far as the art goes, Steven Segovia is a fantastic artist. This is different from any art I've ever seen him do before, and it makes sense in a way, because it's Batman, and it's a newer Batman, and it's a Batman that's a little less polished, and maybe a little more physical. And so it does feel like he's trying to bring that into his art. His art is not as clean as I'm used to seeing it. It's a little more gritty. It's a little more sort of scritchy, and it does suit the mood of the story that's being told. So this is okay for me. If I wasn't reading press previews, I wouldn't be reading it, and I'm not buying physical copies of it or anything like that. So I do hope it gets better. And bottom line is, I just think that DC editorial really screwed over poor John Ridley, because the guy's talented. We saw that in his other History of the DC Universe, which is one of the best comics I've read in quite some time. So anything else to add about this one, Rocky?
Just that when Chase removed the mask and revealed that he's black, that's a huge revelation, because the Sears men, they've seen that, so they now know that Batman, that there's another Batman out there, because everyone knows Batman is white, and now they know there's a black man out there who is, I mean, I don't care what anybody says, and I mean this in the nicest way, but now people know that there's an imposter Batman out there. This isn't Batman. People know he's not Batman. They're going to know he's not Batman because he's black. That's how they're going to know he's not Batman. So the people of Gotham now know that there's an imposter Batman going out there pretending to be Batman. He might be a nice Batman, or just as crazy as the previous Batman, but he's not Batman. And I do find it interesting that, after basically tacitly acknowledging that he's not Batman, because I'm the guy who'll snap your neck and drag your carcass from one side of Gotham to the other. What's that do for you? That's a direct quote. So he's trying to distinguish himself from Batman. Why did he take the mask off to show his black skin? Well, he wants to distinguish himself from Bruce Wayne, which is interesting. And then he turns around and calls himself Batman. So I'm getting mixed signals here. I guess one way to reconcile it is to say that Batman is obviously a symbol. Batman is a symbol, just like Thor is a hammer, or Thor is Captain America is a symbol. Batman is just a symbol. But this is interesting. So from a storytelling point of view, I don't know how the people can I don't know how people can not know now there's two Batmen in Gotham. And if we're going to carry this to its natural conclusion, what do the Justice League think? What do other heroes think? There's two Batman now. I didn't know there was two Batman. No one's ever brought it up to Batman when he was at the Justice League. So I hear you have a black counterpart in Gotham. Is that a conversation that anyone's ever going to have? It's going to be interesting to see. Are we going to see Jace, Batman, maybe lead the Outsiders? That would be interesting. I would like to see that. I'd really like to see this actually move forward. And like we were talking earlier about continuity, I want some consequence from this. I love Jace. That's an awesome scene with him ripping the mask off. He looks awesome. He just looks powerful. And I think he can get away with maybe more than Bruce Wayne is. I kind of like Jace's attitude. He's got a different background in the military. He's just a different mindset. So in any event, there's a lot of good here. I just wish it was continuity wise. I just wish it fit a little bit better.
Yep, I agree. All right, on to a comic that much better than the last one we just talked about. It's been spectacular from the beginning. Justice League Last Ride number 6 from writer Chip Zdarsky. Miguel Mendonca is the artist. Erica Angiolini does the colors and world design on letters. Wow, what a fantastic issue. I'll let you go first, Rocky. What'd you think?
I absolutely, this was an adrenaline rush of an issue. I really enjoyed this. I mean, an Omega Lantern, or I guess a dark side Green Lantern. Is that what you call him? But he looks so cool. I know I said Omega Lantern, and that's wrong because that's Roy Harper was the Omega Lantern in the pages of Infinite Frontier. But this is not in the same. I don't believe this is this is not in the continuity of the mainstream DC universe. But I got to give a shout out to the cover B with the dark side cover. It looks awesome. I have a miniature. One of my little side collections I have is I collect dark side covers, and so I'm definitely going to be picking up the cover B here for this. I absolutely love it. But this is great. Our predictions about where the storyline was going, I think we were right that in fact this was all part of Darkseid's master plan to lure the Justice League out to Apocalypse, so they could create a situation where they would power up Apocalypse so that he could essentially become the powerhouse that he is. He was actually hiding. When Green Lantern, when they originally fought Darkseid, when Hal Jordan originally fought Darkseid, there was an explosion, and presumably the Justice League thought that Darkseid was defeated when the central power battery exploded. But instead of being destroyed, Green Lantern, Hal Jordan became, I think, sort of like a living power battery himself, but he was in fact infected by Darkseid. Darkseid was within him. And there's just an absolutely gorgeous page with Mendoza's art here showing this powerful Darkseid with the Omega symbol glowing green on his chest. And of course, interestingly enough, he doesn't even have a power ring. It's like Darkseid himself is a living embodiment of Green Lantern energy, which is really interesting. And I don't know, we don't really learn much about his power set here, but I'm wondering if Darkseid's Omega beams now, are they green instead of red? Because his eyes glow green instead of red, which is kind of cool. So anyways, there's so many battles on so many fronts in this issue, and there's so much that one can say, but you can just sit back and enjoy the art, and so many great battle sequences with Flash and Superman battling the cyborg Superman, and the cyborg Superman pulls out a kryptonite knife, and I mean, it's such a great scene. I mean, I love when Wonder Woman is written properly, when Wonder Woman isn't supplicating herself and getting on her knees in front of her enemies. I like when she says, when she's swinging a sword, when, she says, bring in a knife to a sword fight. And then she takes out Cyborg Superman. I just loved it. I love the scenes here. I love the Flash, the Flash showing up, Green Lantern, the way Superman rescues Batman because he doesn't want another person to die like Martian Manhunter did. I love the just the sheer evilness of Darkseid, who wants to basically reignite Apocalypse again, and he's essentially successful in doing so. I love ultimately when they they need to leave the planet. They're taking Lobo with them. Batman, of course, has the plan. I love the fact that Batman apparently, as Bruce Wayne, he actually invests in the stock market. Apparently there's a universal intergalactic stock market. He has 2 million Thanagarian credits, and he actually decides to pay Lobo off. Chip Zardasky, man, that's cool. Intergalactic day trading. It's suicide traveling across the universe without a way of paying others. If Batman says that, it must be true.
Always prepared.
Yeah, but no. Anyways, I really enjoyed this. I'll just I know there's more to say, but I'll let you do more of the honors, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. We saw the clone, all those clones of Darkseid. Last time I speculated that maybe they were, brainless clones, and Batman was going to somehow kind of use them by remote control and fight off the cyborg Superman / Brainiac hybrids army. Turns out Zardasky had, a much bigger twist in mind. I love the fact. And we never did see the aftermath of that explosion of the battery on Oo. We just assumed that it killed Darkseid.
Yeah.
Green Lantern, Hal Jordan survived because he's a Green Lantern. At no point did I ever consider that Darkseid in that explosion had somehow taken over Hal Jordan. So, Hal will fight because he's going to continue to try to fight, but he doesn't have a power ring like Rocky said. So, but he's pissed off at Darkseid for having to live with him for an extended period of time. I think he mentions it's a couple of years that he had to be a puppet of Darkseid. So he obviously wants his revenge. So yeah, this feels epic, and it felt epic from the beginning. But now that Darkseid has come back, yeah, this is huge. It as interesting as it felt as purported as the last Justice League story, Justice League on their last ride, it didn't necessarily feel like a huge story, even though there were obviously a lot of powerful villains and the Lobo angle and everybody gunning for Lobo and what have you. Interesting setup. Lobo was in on it the whole time, and now one of the things that I felt when I was reading the story, we see Darkseid return. He's got a whole army of Green Lantern willpower formed parademons. He's using the power of the Green Lantern battery to create parademons and give Granny Goodness this willpower armor and what have you. Like, he's a huge threat. Batman even says, an Oa-powered Darkseid's an immediate threat. We can't run and hide. This story has leveled up in a huge way. And now it definitely feels like a last Justice League story. Not that it didn't before, but now it has a threat that makes it feel like this really could be the battle that's going to take every one of their sacrifices in order to win. And then, of course, one of the coolest things is at the very end, Martian Manhunter shows up, sort of climbing out of that. It looks like out of the Owen willpower from the battery because he's all green. And he tells Darkseid, he overhears Wonder Woman saying that the League has stopped, every manner of pitiful tyrant that it's ever come up against. And Martian Manhunter says, she's correct. You may have outrun death, but as long as we exist, you will not outrun justice. And it's just this spectacular spectacular full page spread from Miguel Mendonca of this, willpower formed Martian Manhunter. So maybe even though he died on Apocalypse, his consciousness, his physical body may have been destroyed, but once Darkseid used the power, the green willpower, to reignite the fires of Apocalypse, Martian Manhunter, who we know has mental powers and this very strong willpower himself, maybe his consciousness, which was still there on Oa, or on Apocalypse rather, because that's where he died, he's able to use, he's able to manipulate the willpower of the Green Lantern energy as well, right? Because he does have such strong willpower. So that's what I'm speculating. I was wrong when I speculated last time about the Darkseid clones, but I feel like I'm right about Martian Manhunter. So his physical body died, but his mental self, or his soul, whatever you want to call it, his psychic presence has been there on Apocalypse all this time, and now he's able to manipulate the Green Lantern energy to form a new body. So just a fantastic scene. I mean, what a great action-packed, perfectly paced, beautifully illustrated story this has been. It's so good. Like I just cannot recommend this highly enough. Like, this is far and away the best work Miguel's ever done. He just keeps knocking it out of the park, just issue after issue after issue. Because there's that scene when Darkseid first resurrects himself and uses the power to blast his way up out of his old laboratory, and Batman kind of comes to and sees that there's a countdown, like a self-destruct countdown. He's like, oh crap. And he grabs Hal Jordan, who's unconscious after finally having the Darkseid consciousness leave his body, and he's trying to get out of there, but he doesn't have enough time. The bomb's about to go off, and there's even though Superman's halfway across the planet fighting against Brainiac's forces, cyborg Brainiac hybrid forces, he knows Bruce is in trouble, and he zooms over there, and it's very reminiscent of that scene. It reminded me of that scene in the second Matrix film, where Keanu Reeves has to fly over and save Morpheus, who's about to be blown up standing on top of an 18-wheel truck, and that's what Superman does. He grabs Batman, he grabs Hal Jordan, and he gets him out of the blast at the last possible instant. So just, again, little scenes like that are absolutely fantastic. I mean, just so much detail. And I'm glad, we talked about how emotional the story was in the beginning, and the fact that there's a lot of baggage there because of the last time they were at Apocalypse, Martian Manhunter dying, Batman, Superman not getting along, and Zardasky took the time to establish that. And the first few issues definitely felt like they were paced a little slower, and we did have time for those emotional beats. Now that the shit has sort of hit the fan, there's no time for any of that. And so, again, Zardasky's great at doing that. He sets it up early in the story when he has room for it, and then when we need to go, mash the gas pedal all the way down to the floorboard, and just have action after action after action, and plot twists, and awesome cliffhangers, we're ready for it. And you don't miss the fact that you don't necessarily have character moments because you got them early on when there was space. And now we're just, like I said, going 100 miles an hour down the highway with the pedal smashed down to the floor. So, just blew me away. Such a great issue.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree with every word.
Yeah, fantastic. That's going to win some awards. If not Eisner's, then definitely some Comic Source awards. So, all right. Up next, we have Pennyworth number 3, At the Hands of Monsters in a Frozen Prison. It's written by Scott Bryan Wilson. Juan Gedeon is the artist. John Roche on colors. DC Hopkins on letters. If you haven't been following the Pennyworth comic series, it's very similar to the Pennyworth TV series. It talks about Alfred Pennyworth back when he was a spy for MI5 in World War II. And in this story, him and his spy partner are in the Arctic exploring and trying to learn information in this Russian weapons laboratory, where they're making these sort of superpowered beings, superpowered soldiers, super soldiers, I guess. Kind of reminds me of Bushwhacker from Marvel, if you know that character, where he could like rearrange the cybernetic bones of his hands to be like a shotgun or a bazooka or whatever. And these guys can do something similar. They can rearrange their hands to be projectile weapons, but they're also big and bulked up, kind of like Bane. And so it's been a fun story. It's narrated by Alfred because there's a dual narrative. He's also been captured in present day, but we get very little of that in this issue, and he doesn't even know who he's been captured by or why. And most of the story is, as I said, told back when he was in World War II. And in this particular issue, he's betrayed. He's betrayed by his partner, who not only was his partner, but somebody he grew up with and he had romantic feelings for. And so it's been interesting because he, like I said, he's been narrating this all along, and he narrates it in such a way. And obviously, Scott Bryan Wilson wants it to be a surprise for us. So Alfred's not going to narrate it in such a way where he's like, "Oh, let me tell you the story about this chick who betrayed me right from the start." Like he waits, even though that doesn't necessarily make sense. But I don't know. Maybe I'd tell the story that way too, because it makes it more, more of a bombshell. But again, it has very much of a James Bond feel, and with the latest James Bond movie coming out this last weekend, you want your James Bond fix. Maybe this will interest you. There is the show on the Epix streaming service that is called Pennyworth. This is very much in that same sort of vein. So if you like that show, you'll like this. And we don't have any Alfred in the regular DC continuity right now. So if you're a huge Alfred fan, maybe you want to check this out. Or if you're a Batman fan, or you just want to learn more about Alfred in his early days, because I see no reason why this couldn't be in continuity. So Scott Bryan Wilson, I don't think I've ever read anything from him before, but he paces it well. I really like the scripting he does. It's not exactly English like we speak here in America. Rocky from Canada, speaks Canadian English. They have a few different terms. And then if you go across the pond, they have the Queen's English, as they call it, and it's a little different as well. So he gets all that stuff right. So it does give it an authentic feel, and I'm enjoying the story. It's, like I said, it's well paced. The art is solid. It's not lighting the world on fire, but it's fun, and it reminds me how much I like Alfred as a character, and I wish DC hadn't killed him off, because that was 100% editorial. Tom King even came out and said he was not going to kill Alfred. He was going to have it be like a goof that Bane was doing to hurt Damian. But then I think it was actually Dan Didio himself said, no, that's a good idea. Let's kill Alfred. I don't know why you would ever think that was a good idea, but be that as it may, if you need your Alfred Pennyworth fix monthly, like I feel I do, you should be reading this. It's pretty solid. So, anything to add, Rocky?
No, I'm glad you were nice enough to talk first about it, because I never had time to read this, and I'm just going through it as you were talking, and I'm definitely going to be reading this afterwards, because it looks good. It looks like it's a good story. I'm watching Pennyworth on TV. I actually find it enjoyable. I like the time, like the setting, sort of like World War II, or I guess, whatever pre or post World War II is. It's good. So yeah, and this I like the art here, and it looks like it's pretty good. So it's good. I'll definitely be checking it out.
Yeah, definitely worth your time. All right, up next we have the final issue of Strange Adventures. 12 issues. This is the end. Written by Tom King, art by Mitch Gerrits, Evan Doc Shaner, Clayton Cowles does the letters. I didn't know what to think, so I'm gonna let you go first, Rocky.
Wow.
What did
Oh
you
my
think of the
God.
ending here?
Okay, well, I've been enjoying this. The latter half up until number 11, I was really enjoying this, and I I gotta tell you, man, everybody there are a lot of Tom people out there that don't like Tom King, and there's a lot of Tom King detractors out there, and I've been pretty much defending Tom King insofar as, at least so far as I've been enjoying most of what he's been writing quite frankly. Other than Batman, Catwoman, I've been enjoying it, and I've been enjoying Strange Adventures as well. And this final issue here, I have to say, I'm gonna. This does. So this is going to drive a lot of Tom King detractors. It's going to give him a lot of ammunition because Adam Strange kills himself. He killed himself. And
did he though?
well, okay, maybe if he didn't kill himself, then his wife killed him. One of them, either Alana shot him or he killed himself.
Or he killed himself, yeah.
One of them. But either way, it's depressing in so far because everyone's saying all Tom King does, he takes existing characters, he makes their life miserable, and then something terrible happens and it's all misery. And well, you know what? So be it. But I have to say though that I still enjoyed this. I did. I enjoyed this issue, and I have to admit, I'm not a fan of Adam Strange, so straight up, I don't care that he's dead. This issue ends, we have a woman of two worlds, her name is Alana. And what's been happening over the previous 11 issues leading up to this is that Adam Strange betrayed Rand, and he betrayed his wife and his daughter, and he arranged a diplomatic arrangement with the Picts, and that arrangement that he had with them was such that it involved an elaborate sort of ruse and conspiracy where he needed to fool his wife Alana into believing that their daughter was dead, and ultimately that it would lead to a sort of a stalemate, and it was an arrangement that saved billions of lives, but apparently, I don't know, oddly enough, it really seems to piss off Alana. I understand why it pisses off Alana. She's angry at her husband for lying to her about the death of their daughter, which is an unforgivable thing for a husband to do to a wife. But as a diplomat, I still say Adam Strange did the right thing. He did the right thing. He saved billions of lives. And what Alana does here, which I think is really stupid, was that she takes Mr. Terrific and they go into Pict headquarters. They tell them that Adam Strange is dead, that their deal is off, the diplomatic arrangement is off. She wants her daughter. She kills the Picts, a Pict ambassador. She gets her daughter, and of course her daughter wants to know where dad is. Of course, daddy's dead. And meanwhile, she's hugging Mr. Terrific. And, there's some really graphic scenes here where she even asks mom, whose blood is that? What is that? That's blood, sweetie. It's theirs. And Alana's just this innocent girl. And it's really played to be very almost dramatic. And yet it feels off. Alana feels a little bit off too. But her life has turned so upside down right now that Alana, she basically gives her daughter Aaliyah to Mr. Terrific and says, I want you to take care of my daughter now. I got to go back to Rand because I got to deal with the shitstorm that's going to happen when the Picts find out that the deal that my now dead husband brokered, when they found out it's fallen apart, they're going to attack Rand. Aaliyah's going to be safe on Earth because Earth legitimately defeated the Picts, but Rand didn't. My husband had to create a side deal in order to, create a detente with the Picts. And I got to do what I got to do. So I'm a woman of two worlds now, Mr. Terrific, and you got to do this because you owe me. Somehow in Alana's mind, she blames Mr. Terrific for all this that's gone on. That somehow, if it wasn't for Mr. Terrific, or maybe if it wasn't for the fact that the Justice League never helped them out against the Picts, that somehow that Adam would still be alive. And I get the sense that Alana is still, I think she almost has a post-traumatic stress from the fact that Adam, her husband, died in her arms. And there was a great scene here where Alana says to Mr. Terrific, you never asked how Adam died. And he goes, I know how Adam died. He died how all empires die. He killed himself. And I thought, that really speaks to, for me, the major theme of this entire 12 issue arc, and that is that this was about empires. It was about empires and diplomacy, and about how all empires ultimately can come down to just the diplomats and the families of the diplomats. And I'm a history buff, and I found that really fascinating. And just, you look at how one person can make a difference, whether it's Winston Churchill or Adolf Hitler or Roosevelt or Truman, and the decisions they make. Look at the decision that Adam Strange made here, but yet look at the profound impact it had on the billions and trillions of lives on Rand and the Picts. But look at the personal cost to Adam Strange and his wife and his daughter, and the impact that has moving forward. And there are no winners here in this story. And there's a great panel where Alana says, our lives are stories, little fictions we tell our friends and our lovers and ourselves, and we spend every moment we have praying to every god we can find that no one ever discovers that we made all that shit up. and and I think that's so true of all the facade that we all have in some capacity of as a family. Adam and Alana put on this facade, and that's the whole series, is that facade. With the book signing, it ends with Adam Strange signing a book saying, "Hi, I'm Adam Strange." Like, there was this facade that he put up back on Earth. He betrays Rand, creates peace with the Picts through the betrayal about his daughter dying, goes back to Earth, sells books on the side. It's all part of this elaborate ruse, and it's all a fiction. And then we as readers are reading about the fiction in our fiction. And I think this is multi-layered here. And I got Tom King detractors that will scoff at me and say it's all nonsense and what have you. And I actually think that there is a degree of genius in this storytelling. I think this is very well done, and it's got something to say. If you're an Adam Strange fan, I'm so sorry that, yeah, Tom King shit all over your character. He did. He really did. So I do. You have my sympathy, but I don't like Adam Strange, and I like this, and I love this story. And I'll just leave it at that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This very much feels like a Tom King story, and I thought I was so onto something when I said it wasn't Adam Strange at all. It was Alana. I think that would have been a really interesting twist, and I think it would have worked 100%. I don't think it would have contradicted anything that was told in the story in the series up to that point. It would have changed the ending tremendously, and it would have felt a lot more, I don't want to say gimmicky, but it would have felt a lot more like a comic book. If it turns out all along Adam Strange was being kind of puppet mastered by his wife, and she was the one pulling the strings the whole time. The story that Tom King actually tells is much more real, in as much as it's messy and there aren't really any answers. It's not clean in the end. The point I was making earlier, we only have Alana's word from what she tells Mr. Terrific that Adam Strange committed suicide.
That's right. Yeah.
And she even said he died in my arms. Okay, but did he kill himself or not? So there's still that part of me, because there is something in Tom King's Alana that is very hard.
That's right.
That's she's got a hard edge to her, to the point where you ever like bit into aluminum foil accidentally and you get that kind of feeling. That's Alana, right? She's got that steel in her, that uncomfortable feeling. She's not somebody you would want to mess with, as opposed to Adam Strange, who did these supposedly horrible things. I still don't know. I still don't 100% buy it. There's still part of me in the back of my head that thinks was how much of this was Alana and how much was Adam Strange, because she does, kind of break down in the end to Mr. Terrific and says, I knew that he was making mistakes. I saw the blood on his hands, the blood of two worlds, and I'm soaked in it too. And so, she's not completely innocent here. And so maybe she decided that in order for her to have a fresh start, she needed to kill him, and in that way, she was killing that part of herself as well. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret this, which is often the case with Tom King stories that when they don't, wrap up with a nice, neat little bow. So I agree with you when you say that the Tom King detractors are going to have a lot of fodder with this one, and there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of complaining, and because there's different ways that you could interpret it. And I was one of those people who kind of early on, when we first discovered that Adam Strange may have been the bad guy of the story, I was like, no, you can't. Like I'm whatever. I'm pretty much indifferent to Adam Strange, but he still is a classic Golden Age DC character, and you can't have him like being this war criminal. And then I remembered, oh wait, this is a Black Label book, so you can do whatever the hell you want. It doesn't affect the Adam Strange that's in the regular DC universe, and that isn't that the whole point of the Black Label, to be able to tell the stories that you want to tell without being beholden to continuity or have to make sure you're returning your character to the status quo. So yeah, ultimately, I don't know how I feel about the story or exactly what I think it all means or how it all ties together. Um, like, is there some version of this story in my mind? I'm going to say, okay, this is the version that I think, this is how I interpret it and what I think happened, and that's what I'm going with. Maybe, but I need to sit down and reread the whole thing. And I said this. I said this when issue 11 came out, and my predicted twist from the end of issue 10 did not happen. Like, okay, I'm going to have to sit down and reread this thing probably a couple times in one sitting. Sit down, read it all, and then come back to it a few weeks or a month later, sit down and read it all um, and interpret it, because I think that ultimately there are no cut and dried answers. This isn't tied up with a nice, neat bow, because life is not tied up with a nice, neat bow. And even if I talked to Tom, he probably wouldn't necessarily give me straight answers, or he may not. He may not have gone that far in his head. He might have purposely came up with a more ambiguous ending and left it at that. Even the writer of the story doesn't necessarily know. Well, did Alana kill Adam Strange, or did Adam Strange kill himself?
Yeah.
Is Adam Strange the villain of the story, or is the villain of the story the Pix, or Alana, or Mr. Terrific for uncovering the truth? Or is it somewhere in between, or a mixture of, or the situation? Like, you can, again, there are no simple answers. This is a black and white story. And when you think about it, what I just said about Adam Strange being a classic Golden Age DC character, who if you go back and read the Golden Age Adam Strange stories, you can't get more sort of simplistic and black and white than those, right? Here's this guy from Earth.
Yeah.
He can teleport across the galaxy to some strange planet where there's people that are very Earth-like. They're all human. They're all white. They're very much like him, but there's all these evil aliens attacking them all the time. There's no room for who's good and who's bad or whatever. Like, it's very black and white. It's very much tied up in a nice, neat bow. All the lines are solid lines, and you know which side Adam Strange is on and which side all the bad guys are on.
Yeah.
So to take a character that's that sort of from those simplistic roots and put it into a story like this, where there are no easy answers, in a way, is sort of brilliant when you stop and think about it. And at the end of the day, it's all about perspective. And, there's that old saying that every villain is a hero of their own story. And when this first came out, Tom talked about how the politics of the world today and this idea of fake news and truth being a matter of perspective was something that he wanted to explore. And so he certainly did a great job of that. And in as much as there's often not right answers, or you can't come to a consensus these days when you talk to people or get them together, or somebody from the other side, or people from opposite ends of the political spectrum, it's like, they're not even speaking the same language. You can never get them to agree on anything because they're so far out there and have different perspectives on what truth is. So I think if that's what Tom was setting out to do, he did it brilliantly. So yeah, I might talk about this later. I mean, I'd love to have Tom on to pick his
Yeah.
brain about this, but
Oh,
who knows?
there's so much to talk about here. Like
Yeah,
I could talk for another half hour, but we've got more comics to review. But yeah, I enjoyed this. There's so many other themes to talk about here. Alana's character in particular, her dark side, and even Mr. Terrific, his attitude, and even moving forward is this is supposed to be out of continuity, but I wonder, will Mr. Terrific will he be raising Aaliyah? Will that be part of it? Will that be portion? That's interesting to give Mr. Terrific sort of a surrogate daughter, because since he doesn't have one. So if that will continue on in the mainstream DC universe, which it's odd. There's always this weird eclectic mix between, if stories resonate, they become continuity. But I would actually like I actually like this. I personally would like to see some version of this be the mainstream DC continuity myself, because I'm not a big Adam Strange fan, and I'm compelled to say this: the last significant appearance we had before this series of Adam Strange, the last time Adam Strange made a significant appearance in the DC universe, it Adam Strange was the character that Superman confided in and asked questions about before he revealed his secret identity to the world in the pages of Superman, if you can believe that. And Bendis had scripted Adam Strange to be such a doofus that Adam Strange asked Superman if he was Batman. Now,
yeah,
contrast that with this seriousness of this storyline, and the fact that in this storyline Superman refuses to help Adam Strange protect the planet of Ran from extermination, which is a major blunder on the part of Tom King. There's some script issues I have with that, but in any event, it's that's why you can't fit everything into one continuity. But in any event, it's
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. So, all right, let's move on. Next book we're going to talk about Superman and the Authority #4, written by Grant Morrison. Pretty awesome art by Mikhail Yanin, Jordi Belair on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. I'm going to sort of echo what I was talking about with the Batman continuity here, to a lesser extent. Superman doesn't look anything like he looks in the regular Superman books, but this supposedly is happening at the same time. Why does he have gray hair here and he doesn't have gray hair anywhere else? Why are his powers so diminished here when his powers, there was hints at it in Action Comics that he was, and Batman was running tests that his powers were diminishing, but not to the point they are in this. And like I said when we were reviewing the part 1 of this series, he acts wildly different. He's wildly different. And even in the way he acts in this final issue, when he rips the head off Solomon Grundy's body. Now, the argument could be made that Solomon Grundy's not really alive. Solomon Grundy's body was, being used by the Ultra Humanite, and Solomon Grundy's going to, come back to life or reborn on Monday or whatever. But still, this is a less kindler and gentler Superman. He's definitely got an edge to him. And you would expect that from a Grant Morrison Superman, and you would expect that from a Superman who feels like he has a mission he needs to accomplish, and you would expect that from a Superman who feels like he might be in danger of not being able to accomplish that mission before he loses his powers completely or is killed. All that would make sense. But guess what? That's not the Superman of present day. That's the Superman of the future, which is exactly what I thought we were getting when I first read this story, because that's what it felt like at the time period it was set in. And when you talk about Superman and the Authority, and we all know, the Authority and sort of their, I don't want to say fascist tendencies, but their tendencies to make decisions for others and sort of, plot the future of mankind for their own good. I guess it is fascist tendencies when you think about it. When you put Superman and that group's name in the title of your book, you expect a Superman that's a little more authoritarian, right?
Yeah.
But as the story went on, it felt like, okay, so I think Grant Morrison was going to tell this story and it was going to be out of continuity or whatever. And then a couple issues in, somebody at DC editorial went, well, wait, why can't we just have this be this big threat that's looming over Superman that he's gathering this team for? Why can't we just have that be Warworld from Future State Superman? That's perfect. Yeah. And so much like John Ridley in I Am Batman, I feel like Grant Morrison got the short end of the stick. Now, I'm not a big Grant Morrison fan anyway, but I would have rather gotten, or I think Grant Morrison deserved, fans of Grant Morrison deserved to just have his story of Superman and the Authority without it tied into anything that's going on currently. I think that would have been a better story. But as it is, this just feels like a prelude to something because it doesn't go anywhere. I read this final issue and I went, okay, well, that was fine. Awesome artwork of Mikhail Yanin, but this was basically the story of Superman recruiting a team to go to Warworld. But we already saw Superman on Warworld, and he was dressed like in his, I don't know, S&M outfit, and he didn't have any of these people with him. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. Like ultimately, I think this suffers from the same thing as I Am Batman does. The super messy DC continuity right now, where nothing makes any sense. It had some fun moments. Mostly, I'm glad that I checked it out because the Mikhail Yanin art is fantastic, and the line work and the storytelling and the panel layouts and everything is absolutely fantastic. And Morrison doing an older Superman, I think, has a lot of potential. Um, and as much as I don't like Morrison, I think I might have enjoyed the story if they had just said, okay, tell a Superman and the Authority story, and it's outside the continuity, and just do whatever the hell you want, Morrison. Maybe that's too much rope to give Morrison, and when you do that, like with the Green Lantern, it gets weird, and then I end up feeling like it's too Morrisonian, and I don't end up liking it because he pulls in too much obscure stuff. Um, but I rather would have had that than this. That felt like it started off on a Grant Morrison story and then ended up being, well, why don't you just tie it into what's going on in Superman? Because again, it doesn't make any sense. Superman doesn't act like the Superman we know. He acts like he should for a Superman who's recruiting a team of authoritarians. Um, but yeah, the gray haired, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Um, and although the cover is cool, my senses certainly weren't shattered by the conclusion of the story. Maybe notwithstanding, because it didn't feel like it was a ending of any sort or a conclusion of any sort. But there are some great moments. I mean, Superman fighting the Ultra Humanite Solomon Grundy body was great, and even seeing Superman rip the head off was great. Seeing Lois show up in Kandor was great. But a bunch of great stories do not a cohesive story make, or a bunch of great moments, I guess, does not a cohesive story make. So ultimately, this Superman and the Authority overall was a miss for me, story wise. Art wise, fantastic, but story wise, a lot of great moments, but yeah, just make any sense.
I
And I don't actually blame Morrison for that.
yeah,
It's not his fault. So
yeah, I as a Grant Morrison story, I had fun with this, and I had fun with this issue. I really like the battle between the Authority and the I guess the minions of the Ultra Humanite, the Iron Cross, Civ, the Fleur de Lis, Cold Cast, and Eclipso. Watching those battles play out, there was a lot that Grant Morrison crammed into this fourth issue. I got the sense that maybe if this story was allowed to maybe grow, that this could have been maybe a 6 or 7 or 8 issue story. A
at
lot was
least
crammed in here, and it was somewhat. So I agree with you that it's probably not Grant Morrison's fault. Having said that, it is very hard to reconcile. I in my head, with my head canon, I can maybe say to myself, well, maybe Superman. Well, it just doesn't fit. I mean, they could have just taken the gray out of his hair. There, I mean, the funny thing is that Superman is slowly losing his powers, even in the mainstream DC titles. Well, this is mainstream too, but even Batman in the pages of Justice League told Superman that Superman's losing his power, is slowly losing his powers. That's something that was noticed, but he wasn't getting gray hair at that time. So, but that's maybe minor. I think a lot of this work was probably done. I think this story was done, probably has been done for over a year. In fact, I think it has been done for a long time, if I recall. And I think that I think this is kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. It's kind of an imaginary thing. How do you reconcile Superman talking to John Kennedy at the beginning? Good Lord. And getting the table of Camelot. And I mean, there's so many crazy things in this that I absolutely love as a eclectic, off the wall, Silver Age, crazy Superman story. And I'm gonna let it slide because I had fun with it. And Grant Morrison crammed so much shit in this. There's some great character work here, and I'm looking forward to see what these characters can do on War World. I suspect they're probably not going to be written quite as interestingly as Grant Morrison can write them on War World, but uh, the Authority and Superman versus Mongol, the way that the Authority and Superman here take out Brainiac's, henchmen, Ultra Humanite, and all those, and the Iron Cross, Fleur de Lis, Coldcast, Eclipso. I would think they would be able to walk the floor with Mongol fairly handily. But, uh, anyways, it's beautiful. I love the art. I personally would like to see more of this. I wish they would give Grant Morrison 12 issues to have fun with this superhero team, or even I remember Grant Morrison only had 1 or 2 issues of the Authority, only put out 1 issue of the Authority back in the day, and it was canceled. I think that was back in 2000 and I don't know 9 or 10 or something. But this makes me really wish that Grant Morrison could have a full run on the concept. But in any event, we're off. Superman and the Authority are now off to War World, and even though this makes not a lot of sense in terms of fitting in with the rest of the DC Superman stories, so be it. It's still fun.
Yeah, it really is, and I think it was. I don't know if it was finished, but it was definitely started. But I mean, one thing neither of us mentioned, we mentioned that timing feels off or whatever, and the gray hair, but he also has a different costume in the beginning, but then in the end, the last couple of pages, he puts on his traditional costume, and there's even a throwaway line in there about Lois saying something about, "Oh, you're wearing your I'm losing my powers costume" or something like that. So yeah, it's just clunky that they tried to shoehorn it in because that's exactly what they did, and unfortunately, that's exactly what it feels like. So. And as much as I'm not a Morrison fan, like I said, I just wish he'd had the chance and opportunity to tell the story that he wanted to tell. All right, up next, we're going to talk about The Joker from writer James Tynion IV. Guillem March is the artist. Eric Prianto does the colors. Tom Napolitano on letters. And then there's the Punchline backup from writers Sam Johns and James Tynion. Art by Rosie Campi. Letters by Marissa Louise. And letters by Ariana Mayer. I thought this was a solid issue, Rocky. What'd you think?
I thought it was pretty solid too. Once again, James Tynion, James Tynion, he impresses me. We actually, this is the series that is called The Joker, but doesn't really focus all that much on the Joker, and I'm kind of glad. But this issue, it's funny, Joker isn't in this issue either, but he's on the cover at least. But this entire series is about what other characters think of the Joker and the impact that the Joker has on so many people's lives. And in this case, Vengeance, the daughter of Bane, she wants to kill the Joker too. And in this issue, it's the Vengeance, daughter of Bane, confronting Isabella, or I guess Madame Halloween, during her conversation with Commissioner Gordon in a fancy restaurant. And Vengeance just very viscerally, it looks like Vengeance actually rips her arm off. It's like just brutally rips her arm off, and then knocks Commissioner Gordon out, Jim Gordon out, and ends up and tells Jim, "I told you to go home, Mr. Gordon," because Vengeance, of course, rescued, when they were on that one island getaway where the Joker was hiding out and the Joker was attacked. Vengeance attacked as well. The Joker escaped, and ultimately so did Gordon, and Vengeance never was there to try to take out the Joker, but was unsuccessful doing so. This issue, we get more information about Vengeance, and we find out that she's done her own investigating. We find out that she was basically raised in a lab. She was raised from when she was basically I think when she was just a conglomeration of cells. Her cells were fed venom, so she was raised to be basically, she was raised by her by the by her uh by the generals on Santa Prisca to do their bidding and to basically be a bane that they could control. And she doesn't want to be controlled. And even though she hates the Joker for killing Bane. She doesn't want to kill Bane because her generals told her to. She wants Gordon to tell her, why do you hate Bane, and let me kill Bane, or let me kill the Joker for you, Jim. And it's funny because Gordon's already got people who, he's going to be paid $25 million if he takes out the Joker, and he's got to resist that temptation. And now he's got, and Jim Gordon hates the Joker, and now he's got Vengeance, daughter of Bane, who telling him, let me be your instrument, Jim Gordon. I don't want to be the instrument of my generals. I want to make my own decision, and I want to be your instrument to kill Bane, or to kill the Joker. And so Gordon's getting all these temptations from all these sides, and everybody wants the Joker dead. And I really like how it's weaving the tale here. And people are going to bitch again about Joker not being in this issue. But again, I don't care. I'm enjoying this. I actually am quite fascinated by Vengeance. And at one point, Gordon asks her, whose vengeance are you? And she says, that's what I'm trying to decide. So Vengeance herself she's kind of relatively new. She's trying to figure her own motivations out. We get to, and there's a scene here that I found quite fascinating. Vengeance, when she destroyed the lab in Paris, she came across DNA samples of many notable costume heroes. And it looks like there's King Snake, there's Lady Shiva's blood, there is I think Scandal Savage, and there's a number of other names there that I think are very interesting. And I'm wondering, would this be connected? It's probably not. I mean, there's even Batman's blood was apparently taken. That's interesting because I do remember Batman Urban Legends, Wildstorm. There was a story with that Wildstorm character stole a bit of Wonder Woman's blood as well. So I'm kind of curious.
Zealot.
Yeah, Zealots, and I'm wondering. I can't imagine that this lab would be related to that, but it's interesting that somebody maybe is collecting some blood samples from various people all over the DC universe. But in any event, I thought that was maybe worth pointing out. I'm enjoying this. I continue to be intrigued by this. I'm really curious to see how. We can probably guess that the Joker's going to survive this, but how is Jim Gordon going to come out of this? This is the Joker comic book, and I'm more interested in the character arc of Jim Gordon. How is Jim Gordon going to come out of this storyline unscathed? So, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I am a subscriber to James Tynion's Substack, and he talked about the sort of the origins of this comic, and he had a completely different idea for how to do a Joker story or a Joker title without Joker in it. And originally it was a guy that was inspired by the Joker, sort of obsessed by him, becomes a serial killer in his own right. And so it was more about the effect the Joker has on the people around him without actually being about the Joker. That's exactly what this is. That aspect of it, right? This is a title that's called Joker that has more to do with the consequences of the actions that the Joker has taken throughout his career, I guess you'll call it, or existence, maybe is a better word, that doesn't actually focus on the Joker. The Joker isn't the point of this title. Now, if you're a big fan of the Joker and you're picking up issue 8 of the Joker series and you haven't figured out by now that this is not a Joker story, that it's a story about the effects that the Joker has on those around him, then I don't know what to tell you. Because I agree with Rocky. I'm fascinated by Vengeance and the idea that she was created and she's sort of like like just a gun, right? She's pointed at whatever weapon the generals deem they want to take out, and then she'll go and be sort of reset, I guess. In that way, she kind of a little bit reminds me of Bloodshot over in the Valiant universe. Or if you saw the Vin Diesel movie, that's kind of what they did with Bloodshot. They would program his mind so that he would want vengeance and take out their target, and then they'd bring him back to the laboratory, erase everything, and lay down a new, past for him where, oh, look, now this guy is the bad guy who killed your family or whatever, and then he'd go out and take that guy out. That's sort of what the generals do for vengeance. And so, but she's got the self-awareness and the fact that she tells Jim Gordon, I want your passion, because she has all the animosity and all the hate for the Joker, and she needs to take the Joker out, but she doesn't have any reason. And I love that because it adds a complexity to vengeance that's not there in Bloodshot, or this isn't the most original science fiction or comic book trope here. It's been done before, but what necessarily hasn't been done, usually the person is not aware. There's self-awareness for vengeance. Like, she wants to know. She wants wants to know Gordon's reasons for wanting the Joker dead, so she can make them her own, so she can feel like it'll give her more agency, that she's actually choosing to go, and she has a reason for going and killing the Joker, rather than just that, she's a weapon and somebody told her to. So I think that's, I think that's fascinating. She's become a much more interesting character to me than just a derivative of Bane. In my mind, she's actually much more interesting than Bane. So I don't know. I kind of like that. Thought it was fascinating, and the art by Guillem March,
excellent,
really, really fantastic. Just brutally good. The whole scene, the montage page where we see what Vengeance would do when she catches Joker. She explains how she would kill him and whatever. But I'd be down for that. I wouldn't necessarily want to watch it in person, but the Joker would really be gone. So if DC ever kills the Joker, I hope that's what they do, because we all know how much I dislike the Joker and think he's terribly overused, and Batman should beat him in like 10 seconds and you never hear from him again. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk a little bit about the backup story. We've sort of complained, or I have anyway, about this Punchline story. It feels like it's going on and on. Punchline doesn't feel like a character that kind of deserves the amount of attention that she's got. I know Rocky's more of a fan than me. But here's the interesting thing about this. I thought this was actually the best chapter, the one I enjoyed the most so far, because up until the last page or two, we got a Punchline story that didn't have any Punchline in it, much like the Joker story hasn't had Joker. And it had more to do with Harper Row and Orca, who I never would have thought that I would find as a sympathetic character, and Kelly, who is in prison there and is a target for Punchline as well, because she has information about Punchline that can actually be harmful, because Punchline's trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes in her court case. So I actually enjoyed this. This felt authentic to me, the way the characters acted. And I know we're not going to get the comeuppance in the end for Punchline, because she's become too popular of a character in DC Comics. So she's just going to be, a sort of a female version of the Joker, and she'll just be around way, way, way too much going forward. But I don't know. I enjoyed this story. I felt like this was the kind of the most grounded of this storyline that we've gotten so far. I still sort of wonder about the overall point of this story, other than to just show us that Punchline can manipulate the media, because that's ultimately what's going to happen here, and she's going to get out. I don't have much interest in that story, but I think Harper Row has been a little underused, or maybe not underused, but when she was first introduced, especially when she showed up in the Batman Eternal Weekly, I thought she was going to be one thing, and then she's sort of been left on the sidelines, and I feel like people haven't necessarily used her in the right way, and she's sort of been neglected, and I think she has a lot of potential as a character, and I felt like this story showed that. So, and then I also thought the art was really strong. I think the previous couple issues were by Sweeney Boo, and I didn't feel like her style necessarily fit. the art here by Rosie Campy. It's not like full on DC house style, but it's less of that sort of innocent cartoony look and a little more. I don't know. The tone of her art just suits the story a little bit more. I mean, I really look for an innocent, cartoony kind of My Little Pony style when it's set in a woman's prison. Those things aren't they don't exactly go together. So I thought the art was really solid too. Anything to add about the backup, Rocky?
Uh, not really. I do think it's predictable. I mean, they're gonna
Yeah,
they get the prisoner out and to testify, and Punchline looks like Punchline escapes. It's again it's obviously not much of a prison. Punchline rules the roost. Everything the Joker controls the prison from the outside. He controls it, and Punchline controls it from the inside. You'd think at some point maybe Batman would figure that out, or somebody would figure that out, or they would be able to. But everything about this storyline to me felt really forced. It felt it. There were so many disjointed, forced plot devices that didn't make a lot of sense. But the character needed to get from point A to point B, so they came up with a ridiculous scenario. And this was the best of this particular story. I agree, because it finally reached a resolution. And I'm a little disappointed because I do think Punchline is in my own head canon, playing script doctor, I think I could think of 100 different ways to make Punchline more interesting than the way she's been portrayed in this backup. This does the character of Punchline an extreme disservice in my view. But again, that's probably a topic for another one of my rants or another day.
All right, moving on then, we have Titans United #2. This is from writer Cavan Scott. Jose Luis does the pencils, Jonas Trindad on inks, Rex Locus on colors, Carlos Mangual on letters. This is fun. It felt very much like the first issue when we talked about it. We talked about Titans United #1 of 7 feeling very much like instant classic Titans feel, which you kind of don't have right now. And haven't had in the DCU for a while, because the regular Titans title was when Rebirth came out, was all about Wally West's return and what's going on in the multiverse, and then that was all kind of abandoned when different timelines started shifting and Doomsday Clock started getting later and later, and yeah, it was just a mess. And you had the regular Teen Titans, but that was newer characters from Adam Glass with Damian leading them, and they were capturing villains, and there wasn't just, okay, give me my normal Titans, give me my Raven and my Nightwing and my Beast Boy, and just tell me a story. And that's what Cavan Scott gave us in the first one, with an interesting hook, and that continues here in the second one with Superboy's Connell's Superboy's power sort of out of control, and Hawk and Dove are acting very much like Hawk and Dove as they normally do. Jason Todd, Red Hood, is a member of the Titans, a little new, not necessarily used to that, but Donna Troy is there, and Starfire, and yeah, it feels like this is a classic Titans story. And one of the other things that's interesting is we find out about this doctor who was formerly of Cadmus, who was experimenting on superpowered beings, taking samples of their DNA. Sound familiar? This is what I thought of. I was like, wait, I just read the Joker story,
Yeah.
and now in Titans United, same thing. So could they be tied together? I think it's coincidental, but DC would be smart to lean into that and say that it wasn't a coincidence. Would make them seem smarter than they probably are.
Well, I think this is just a quick point. I think this is out of continuity, isn't it? This series, or is this supposed to be in continuity?
You got me. I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't say that it is, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
yeah, I don't know, because I don't know if it really fits all that well. But again, that's an
No,
open
no,
question.
yeah, you're right, and I mean, it's right there on the cover. Watch Titans on HBO Max, so it's definitely trying to be new reader friendly, and it does a good job at that as well. Um, but it's an interesting story, and it's got absolutely fantastic art, and these characters act like what the classic versions of these characters are supposed to act like. So if you want to be able to recommend something to a friend who, hey, I like the Titans TV show, or I just want to read a cool comic, I want to read a DC comic, I want to learn more about DC, you can give them this, and they don't need to have read anything previous. Just read the first 2 issues of this, and they're being introduced to some characters. They're getting to check out some great art, and so I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. What'd you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I like this. I like that it was this Dr. Rosbeck that is taking this DNA, and I love the eclectic array of all these Titan heroes from the comic books. And I actually haven't watched the Titan show. I only watched the first season of the Titans, and I know I've been told it's gotten better and better. But this comic, I love. I love Lady Vic as a character. I remember her from the Nightwing series, so I like seeing Lady Vic. And then Blackfire shows up at the end, which was really
Yeah.
surprising. I wasn't expecting that. She ends up basically sort of like abducting, I guess, Connor at the end. And so she might be the one maybe she's got some hidden agenda with the DNA. Maybe, I'm not sure. Who's activating all these agents? Who's activating all these B-level villains or C-level villains that are gaining these superpowers? Uh, I love the questions that are being asked. Writer Cavan Scott's done a good job of creating a very straightforward mystery. He's planting a bunch of seeds. A lot of action, fantastic art by Jose Luis. I mean, this is just really, really good. It reminds me, uh, frankly, of the potential of what Titans Academy could be. This is actually kind of what I was hoping. I'm more excited for this and interested, invested in this in terms of the action and the story itself. I'm immediately vested, and I was invested in the first issue, but at the end of this second issue, I'm absolutely in because I saw Blackfire. I love Blackfire. Uh, oh man. Anyways, I'm just loving this with classic Connor Kent. Connor Kent here with the black shirt with the red S, Donna Troy, Starfire. This is just Nightwing. This is the Teen Titans that I love, and yeah, high recommend. Lots of action, good dialogue. The Red Hood. By the way, the reason why this might be out of canon is that I don't know where the antagonism between Red Hood and Connor Kent necessarily comes from. I don't I don't think there's an origin for or explanation for that anywhere else in the DC universe. So maybe is there tension like that on the show? Is there like a Red Hood and Connor, like is there tension on the Titan show? Maybe that's where they're getting it from. I don't know. So but
Yeah,
regard
maybe Cavan Scott just wanted somebody to have that dynamic, and it works because I haven't seen
yeah.
the Teen Titans show either, so I'm not sure, but I agree with you, and I think part of what's solidifies this as just that classic DC feel is the art by Jose Luis, just beautiful art, and the colors tend to be a little primary from Rex Locus, which I've talked about this a bunch of times. More primary you go, the more sort of classic comic book feel it has, which again I think is just suits this story really really well.
Yeah.
All right, last book we're going to talk about in detail is Wonder Woman number 780. Diana's finally back on Earth. Finally, Where the Heart Is, from writers Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan. Travis Moore handles most of the art. He does pages 1 through 22 and page 30, and then Steve Pugh fills in on 23 through 29 because this is like a 30-page story, so a little longer than usual. Kind of don't feel like it needed to be. Tamara Bonvillain does the colors. Pat Broso on letters. Not, I don't want to say not much happens, but not much
Well, I'll
happens.
say it. I'll say it.
You
Nothing
you
happens.
yeah, you do get the feeling, or they try to establish the feeling that it's uh, it's a new direction for Diana after this. In fact, at the end it says next Wonder Women. Diana, does get a chance to talk to Queen Nubia. We see the reaction of Wonder Woman's return from people around the world, including Yara Flor. These other people who were supposed to have been Wonder Woman while she was gone. Um, but DC never did that well. We've talked about that at length. Um, but there's even a conversation that Nubia has at one point where Diana's response is, Wonder Woman isn't just me anymore. Because she's talking about Nubia. She's talking about Wonder Girl, she's talking about Cassie Sandsmark Wonder Girl. She's talking about Donna Troy. She's talking about her own mother, Queen Hippolyta, who's a member of the Justice League right now. So, um, would that work for Wonder Woman? I guess if it's a good story, but I don't know. I haven't really felt like we've been getting the best Wonder Woman stories for a while, so I don't know. I don't know what to think of this. So yeah, it's great that she's back. It was great to sort of see her come back and see everybody's reactions to her. The Martian Manhunter scene when she first shows up, when he's opening up his Oreos and then drops them all over the place because she just pops into Hall of Justice was funny. I thought that the scene with Black Canary running up and giving her a big hug was nice. And just seeing all the reactions of people now that she's back. But here's the thing, and we talked about this when we talked about the last issue. We never felt like she was gone. We never felt her absence because for us, she was never gone. We were reading Wonder Woman month in, month out, and they didn't bother to put any of the stories except for one story in the Wonder Woman 100-page spectacular that we covered last week about Steve Trevor missing her. Since DC didn't make a big deal about her being gone, I feel like a lot of these moments where people are celebrating the fact she's back sort of don't have the emotional impact they should have. Certainly nothing like when Superman came back from being dead, right? Like that hit with emotional weight. This didn't. And again, it's different because when Superman came back, there weren't any books that were out there that were coming out on a monthly basis that were telling current Superman stories, where we were reading stories of Wonder Woman in the afterlife. So different situation. But again, I just feel like DC editorial didn't really handle her absence the way she probably deserved, so that a return issue like this would be more of a big deal. But I really did like most of the return scenes just because they were cool, especially when Steve Trevor, he's like looking through his mail in his apartment building, and he's like holding a coffee in one hand, sorting through his mail, and he looks down, and there's stacks of papers there, and he sees Wonder Woman's back, and he just says, yes, and he like throws his hands up in the air and kind of drops to his knees, and it's like it felt like the most authentic of all the reactions that were shown. Yeah. The other thing about it is, yeah, this is 30 pages, and it's sort of narrated by a third person, I guess. It's not Wonder Woman herself that's talking, but in a lot of the splash pages and whatnot, it's just this random person telling us, or this random storytelling voice telling us how Wonder Woman's feeling. But it ends up being a bit of a slog to read. And I felt like the narration wasn't needed, because you throw that narration in there and it ends up being, like I said, a long, sloggy read where it's like, man, that was a long 30 pages. I shouldn't feel like I'm turning the page and I'm going, is it over yet? God, how many pages are left? That's not a good thing when you're reading a comic, as opposed to one of the early comics we talked about in this episode, Batman the Imposter, where every time I turned the page and the story kept going, I was excited. Here I turn the page and I'm like, God, it's not over yet. So I definitely feel like this didn't need 30 pages. And again, just the lack of making a big deal about her being gone makes her return, the impact of her return, like, okay, can we get to issue 781 so we can find out if they're actually going to tell a good Wonder Woman story yet? So I don't know. I'm sure you have a rant all ready to go. Rocky, what did you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of ranted out. But a little bit on this subject. But the reality here is that one of the failures that Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad make, one of their significant misses, is that in the 10 or 11 issues leading up to this, it was all about Wonder Woman's journey to get back to Earth. But what they should have taken 4 or 5 or 6 pages out of every one of those issues and had a subplot or something on the main Earth, on the mainstream DC universe, focusing on what the consequence of Diana's absence is. What is a world without a Wonder Woman about? And they should have had a threat slowly developed that normally Wonder Woman would be there for, but was slowly developing that. But now Wonder Woman's back; she can deal with it now. Uh, in I don't know, in some capacity or something, because there there wasn't a single DC title other than Wonder Woman anthologies that really truly acknowledged Wonder Woman's absence. I think the pages of Bendis, even Bendis's Justice League may have mentioned Wonder Woman's absence, but there was never any consequence to it. It was she just wasn't there, and it was just very, very disappointing. Even in Infinite Frontier, not enough was made of it. Wonder Woman's absence, uh, of not of choosing not to. I mean, even the death of the Quintessence. They were murdered by Darkseid, and where'd Wonder Woman go? Where'd she go? She was invited to join the Quintessence. Did they not know? Why was nobody wondering where Wonder Woman was when her body wasn't found amongst the corpse of the Quintessence when they were murdered by Darkseid? And if they never found her corpse, why isn't anybody asking, well, where's Wonder Woman then? Why aren't they looking for her? Why aren't Amazons looking for her, as opposed to wondering about what young Yara Flora is doing? In any event, this is obviously an editorial, very per decision. This is typical DC with Wonder Woman. They always treat her, she always gets short thrift on all plot lines. George Perez complained about that all the way back to the days of War of the Gods. It hasn't changed one bit. I think even the pages of Death Metal, I thought Wonder Woman was, frankly, I think Scott Snyder wrote her wrong and poorly, if I'm brutally honest. But that's a topic for another day. I've ranted about that before. But I'm glad she's back. But what a wasted 30 pages, though, on this. Why did we need this? I don't know. This is okay, she's back. Well, we already knew that. I don't understand why we needed this issue. And that's all I'll have to say. But hey, beautiful art. Travis Moore, Stephen Pugh, my God, man. Fantastic art, gorgeous art. I love it. It's very well done. It's beautiful to page through, to look through. Yeah. There is one scene here where it shows a new character that I don't know who it is in the Bar Pirata in San Paulo. I don't know what character that's supposed to be.
I think that's supposed to be Yara Flor.
Really?
In the green shirt, yeah.
Really? Oh my God. Yeah. Completely out of sync with what's going on in Wonder Girl. Well, anyways, okay. I had no idea. I don't know why they wouldn't have somebody say her name. So certainly doesn't look like her. But
I'm just going by the fact that it's in Brazil.
Yeah,
Sao Paulo's in Brazil, so
yeah. Well, she also looks Oriental, but I thought it was an Orient. But even though it's, I don't know. But anyways, yeah. That's again, little nitpicks like this. But if I keep talking, I'm just gonna get more upset. But let's just say that I've always said this before, and it sounds so egocentric, but I really do believe the only way Wonder Woman's ever going to be written correctly is if I become a writer and do it myself.
I'd give it a shot, because here's the thing. Like I was saying, like in terms of this being a return of Wonder Woman, it's great and it's emotional, but it doesn't land with the strength and the impact it should, because again, she hasn't been gone. What they should have done, and not to play editor, but what they should have done was they should have had all these issues of Wonder Woman from the end of Death Metal until this one, with stories of Nubia, Yara Flor, Hippolyta. That's what they should have done.
Yeah.
So if you're giving us Wonder Women, then that's what they did with Superman. They gave us Connor Kent. They gave us Cyborg Superman. They gave us Eradicator. They gave us Steel, John Henry Irons. They could have done something similar, and then we would have missed Diana, but they didn't, and that is what it is, I guess. So,
or like you said, they could have had an epic war or battle or adventure that involves all the Amazons, all of them, all three tribes, and then they're battling, and then this issue suddenly Diana shows up and turns the tide. Or it could have been epic, I mean, how I just can't. I refuse to believe that these stories are that difficult to sort of plan out in advance. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'm getting cynical and too damn conceited and egocentric in my old age. I don't know.
Yep. Well, in addition to the books we're talking about in this episode, because believe it or not, there are more that we're not talking about. Harley Quinn the animated series, the Eat Bang Kill tour #2, Challenge of the Supersons #7, the Batman and Scooby Doo Mysteries #7, the Flash Volume 15, which is the Finish Line trade paperback, which finishes up the Joshua Williamson run on Flash, is also out this week. Wonder Woman: The Adventures of Young Diana Special #1. So it's not a collection of the backup that has been in Wonder Woman up until now, written by Jordi Belair. Um, this is a new story all on its own with art by the same art team that is doing those backups. So the pencil works by Paulina Ganeschow. So Rocky and I are talking about how that young Diana story hasn't really felt like it fits the tone of what's been going on in the main title. So I'm glad to see that they're at least putting out a special that kind of stand on its own. And I didn't order that, but I think I'll probably pick it up when I go down to my comic shop for my daughter. And then there's a couple of other trade paperbacks as well. The Inferior 5 trade paperback comes out. Wonder Woman by George Perez, volume #6 is out. And then there's a couple of hardcovers. Batwoman Omnibus, which I guess collects her whole first series. There is a Batman The Long Halloween Deluxe Edition hardcover. And then there's Batman Arkham Asylum, which is that famous Grant Morrison story with art by Dave McKean that's in a deluxe hardcover as well. So plenty of collected editions. And like I said, those are going to become much more scarce, collected editions over the next couple months because of the paper shortage. So if you're looking to get things for Christmas, you might want to do it a little bit early. So
Yeah, there's also the Batman the Audio Adventures special
that's right.
#1 came out. I just got it on the screen for those YouTube. I did actually read this Batman the Audio Adventures, and just more of an anthology of Batman stories. I think they're loosely based on some of the Batman stories from, I'm assuming, the radio back in the days of when there was just radio stories and what have you. And when one of the on the cover B, it has an old looking radio with the bat symbol on it. So it's not bad. I think those, it's another Batman anthology, which frankly I don't think we necessarily need more of them. But the stories were actually, I felt, on par with Batman Black and White. So again, if you love Batman, then you
Yeah,
by all means,
if you love Batman, you got plenty to read
yeah.
every week. Are the stories in black and white?
No, they're
Are
not.
they?
They're
They're
color. They're color,
Gotcha.
and
Great.
they're good.
All right. Well, a big week of DC, like we said. I think overall more good than bad. In case you didn't pick up on it from my reviews, Justice League, Last Ride, far and away my favorite book of the week. And for my least favorite, I'm probably going to have to go with, I guess, even though it's been improving, I still got to go with Future State Gotham. I just don't feel, especially with that reprint of a backup story that's only a few months old, there's no value there. So, yeah. Stay away from Future State Gotham. Definitely pick up Justice League Last Ride. What about you, Rocky?
Yeah. Justice League Last Ride for me too. I that was definitely the best. I would definitely say that's my preference. Now, as far as the worst, the one that annoyed me the most. Well, you know what? I gotta go. Yeah. Well, you know what? No, I'm gonna be a little bit more hard. Future State Gotham was at least had a point. It actually was a decent story. It was action packed. I'm disappointed enough with it that I'm gonna say Wonder Woman 780. I'm gonna say
That's
no.
that's worthy.
I'm just too annoyed with it. I'm gonna say Wonder Woman 780 to avoid, because you don't need, because everybody knows Wonder Woman's back. You could skip it. You could skip it and jump right to 781.
Yep, I agree. What and I did consider Wonder Woman 780 actually as my least liked, but I'd say that Travis Moore art pulls it up for me just a little bit. So anyway, that's going to do it, everybody. I don't have anything else coming out this week that's that I can commit to because again, things are just crazy around here. But I'm still hoping to get back on the horse and get you guys more than 2 or 3 episodes a week. But I guess we'll see. What about you, Rocky? You got anything else coming this week you want to tease?
I don't think so. No, I'm just too busy at work. I got a whole bunch of thumbnails done for certain things, but I did do a little bit of a 3 or 4 minute rant on Wonder Woman screwing Darkseid in Justice League Infinity. I put that video out earlier today. I had some fun with it. And yeah, it's pretty sad when Wonder Woman kissing Darkseid is the most exciting thing happening in Wonder Woman's life in comic books right now. But it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we didn't know we were going to do it, but Rocky and I did drop a review on We Have Demons, which is the first Comixology comic that Scott Snyder did with his longtime collaborator Greg Capullo. There's more Comixology titles coming from Scott. There's 2 more coming this month. So there's another one that drops today, October October 12th, I guess it comes out, which is called Clear with collaborator Francis Manipul. So look for that to be out this week. And I don't know if we'll do a review, if we'll have time to do a review on that or not. But definitely go check out We Have Demons. Check out our review. We do get into the spoilers of it and talk about it in depth. And it's a fantastic story and very much worth your time. So go check that out. If you're somebody who just listens on audio, be sure you head over to YouTube, do a search for Comic Boom. That's comic space boom with an exclamation point. Give Rocky a subscription so you know when he has new comment coming out. You can ring that notification bell and you'll be notified. Also give this video a like. All that stuff really helps out with our reach, and the bigger reach we have, the more access we have to publishers and comics and interviews and that kind of thing. So conversely, if you are checking us out on YouTube and you've never listened to any of the back catalog for the Comic Source podcast, you can head over to your favorite podcast platform. We're on all of them, or you can just do a search for the Comic Source on your favorite podcast application on your smart device. There's thousands of episodes that you can go back and listen to, reviews, comic convention coverage, interviews, and all that kind of great stuff. So we really appreciate the support as always. Thanks for joining us for this huge episode covering all these DC books this week, and we will talk to you next time.
See you later.
Mm-hmm.